Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у щах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страны.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто води всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів. Робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить. Хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар? Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ. Тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар. Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар.
everyone, I'm the Enforcer, I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, everybody. It's Enforcer Matt, and we're back once again on day 196 of the news.
And of course, we're going to be reporting on the past 24 hours of the war in Ukraine. And also, I would like to know, did y'all enjoy yesterday's premiere or not? We did, of course, celebrate our 1-year anniversary yesterday with a premiere instead of a live stream like we are tonight. And I was wondering, did a lot of people enjoy the condensed news segment? Because if so, we might start running those on Mondays, because one of the benefits about that kind of video is that we aren't all the way up till 12 o'clock 7 days a week. We can actually kind of take care of that like a normal afternoon thing. So if y'all enjoyed it, let us know. But tonight we are back with a live stream again to report on the past 24 hours of the war. And so, without further ado, let's go down to the living embodiment of a steamroller that the Ukrainians have created in the Kherson area. It is absolutely incredible what the Ukrainians have been doing and the amount of forces that we've seen on video rolling through the countryside. I have to say, we've seen a lot, and of course y'all know I have been reporting on this war for 196 days straight at this point, so I have seen everything. I have never seen this many Ukrainian forces moving on film. And not only that, but we have gotten a somewhat ambiguous announcement today from the Ukrainian government again that around 3 to 5 villages, somewhere in that range from what I'm able to tell from their statements, have been liberated today alone. 3 to 5 settlements. We don't know which ones these are exactly. The only one we've been able to confirm and that the Ukrainian government has confirmed is that Vyskapilia was captured a couple of days ago. But beyond that, just think about that. 5 settlements. If we count up all of the settlements that's in this area that the Russians control on our map, it's probably around 30. So considering that another 3 to 5 may have been captured today, that means somewhere in between 10 to 15% of Russian-controlled settlements on the western bank of the Dnieper River may have been recaptured and liberated today. Now, to move on up to an instance and a snippet of what the fighting in this area is looking like, we did get some combat footage from the village of Vyskapilia. Now, before we begin, I know that a lot of people, and of course it's a rightful concern, are concerned that this may be violating operational security. However, this video is from 3 days ago, and the Ukrainian forces captured Vyskapilia in its entirety 2 days ago, and we got the news of it yesterday. And so this is not violating operational security at all. This is old enough video footage that these forces are no longer in this area and have moved on well from here at this point. But I want to show y'all the bravery and the fighting that the Ukrainian forces are doing and showing in the area of Kherson, specifically in this small footage from Vyskapilia. And so without further ado, let's take a look at the brave fighting men and women of the Ukrainian armed forces and how they're retaking this land mile by mile, field by field, from the Russians who have been here far too long. You see the Ukrainians moving down the street and now running for cover as we hear the artillery raining down around them. They've now hit the ground. And a massive artillery barrage. This sounds like a massive grad. We now see the Ukrainians advancing to the red fence and laying down once more.
Під забор, пацани.
We now see the Ukrainian forces moving down the row. And of course, we know that the Ukrainians recaptured, well, liberated, I should not really say recaptured, more like liberated the village just about 2 days ago. They were fighting for it about 3 days ago, liberated it 2 days ago. And so going off of that speed, we can get the idea that the Ukrainians can blow through an entire village and get to the other side of it within the course of a day. Now, that puts up one thing in mind, just to assess the Russian situation and the information we know here. The Russians lost one of the largest villages they controlled in the entire Kherson salient that's not Kherson city itself. If we look at the map on Vyskapilia, if I can find it right here, you can see that the settlement of Vyskapilia is actually quite wide. If we measure the distance from one side of the village to the other, we can see that that village is about 2 miles wide. And the Ukrainians were able to blow through this entire village in under Come on, stop that. In under pretty much a day. They captured the entire thing in under a day. And not only that, we saw that they apparently had overrun Russian forces and captured operational BMD-2s. Going off of all of this, and considering that the Russians don't have a sizable village in this area all the way to Novokakhovka, that gives us a really good idea that the Russians must be in a bad situation, considering that Viskapilia was about the closest to a fortress that they could get at this time, due to the massive size of the village and all of the street-to-street fighting that would have to occur for the Ukrainians to take it, and they took it in a day. That gives us an idea well enough alone that the Russians are losing terribly in this area, and the Ukrainians may begin to see boundless progress as they start racing across these open fields and plains. And of course, you can see this is the normal kind of layout of Ukraine, nothing more than fields with some tree lines in between that the Ukrainians will most likely have to advance down, the Russians will have to defend from. And so you can get a pretty good idea here that this is pretty much a closed book for the Russians. If they lost Viskapilia, they're going to lose every single settlement in this finger at some point here in the next few days or weeks. With that, we're now going to be moving to another bit of video. This one we really couldn't tell where it occurred in the Kherson area, but honestly, that's with all the markers. I kind of put them down in the areas where I would assume it happened, but then again, most times I deliberately put them in places I thought they wouldn't happen, so that way there would be a lot of ambiguity and confusion here because we don't want to paint a clear image of what the Ukrainians are doing. However, we could see Ukrainian forces advancing somewhere in the Kherson area, and it was incredible to see. So here's the video. When you see a BMP-1 advancing with soldiers on top, the Ukrainian soldier marshaling them forward, and we can also see one of those Danish M113s. We can also see him do a very weird hand symbol here. I think that one means the Russians are effed. I'm not exactly sure. Don't quote me on that one, but kind of an interesting one. This man is the on the roadside hype squad here. He is just hyping everyone up. It's incredible to see Ukrainian forces moving forward like this, and to know that they're actually now able to dictate the pace of the battle across the entire front line. Because one thing I'll let y'all note today, well, one thing that we all must note today, is that there's no action whatsoever occurring anywhere else in the country, at least on video. And that may be because the Ukrainians have blacked out the media and what's getting out to the entire world. And so while we know that the Ukrainians are conducting some kind of a counteroffensive in the Izium and Kharkiv areas, there's not a lot of videos coming out, and the Russians aren't uploading any either. And so all of the video evidence that we've gotten today, most of it is centered around this Kherson area alone. This means that the Ukrainians are now dictating the entire pace and course of the war through their own actions instead of the Russians doing it. Because up until now, while the Ukrainians have been in a very good position, the Russians have dictated how the battlefield unfolds. For example, during the Battle of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, they were dictating where Ukrainian forces would go and how much resources would be diverted to a defense of that area. And it's been like that the entirety of the war. However, it's now flipped tables. Now the Ukrainians are the ones on the offensives, and now the Russians are having to counter what they're doing instead of the other way around. We have watched the tipping point in this war occur at this point, and I'm fairly certain that it will most likely tip back in Russia's favor for a short while as they probably try one last ditch offensive. I guess you could say a battle of the bulge kind of situation. But beyond that fleeting attempt to try and reassert themselves as the controllers of the situation, the Ukrainians will be on the upper hand beyond this point in the war. With that, we're now going to be moving on into our next video in the Kherson area, showing some Mi-8s in action from the Ukrainian side. Of course, we have to mute this video, and I would like to note that this is being used under the purpose of fair use, as it is being used for news reporting. When you see a camera inside the Mi-8 now pan down into the cockpit view, and now we can see one of the Mi-8s flying over the field. Once again, beautiful camouflage just that the Ukrainians have on all of their helicopters and aircraft. We now see the helicopter tilting up and firing off its unguided rockets. And now turning back around, most likely popping off its chaff and flares. And I know that someone's about to say that flares are used to redirect, I guess you could say, heat-seeking missiles, and chaff is used to deflect radar missiles, so it's most likely just flares. But I always say chaff and flares because I'm not really certain if you can see chaff all too well, especially on camera, so I always just say chaff and flares, although it's most likely just flares. We can now see the second Mi-8 popping off its flares, and then ducking down. It did not fire off any flares, however. We now see the Mi-8s flying over the field in a lake once more. We can see the Mi-8 in front of it firing off its rockets, and now this one shall do the same. It's now getting ready to tilt up. It's now tilting up and firing off its rockets. And you know, Matthew, something I've noticed about this cockpit in the Mi-8, doesn't it make you feel a lot like it's a camera view in the Millennium Falcon in Star Wars?
Yes, a little bit.
It
I
does,
noticed they
doesn't
have like the school bus fans in like the top dashboard area.
Yeah, they do. That's standard in a lot of Russian helicopters, actually, that specific kind of fan. But I gotta tell you, now I know this is a fun fact. The Millennium Falcon's cockpit was based off of the B-29 Super Fortress. However, the Mi-8 kind of has the same feeling. We now see them firing off flares this time as they launch off their rockets. And you can also see the vortices of the rotors as the, I guess you could say the, I don't know what you would like to call them, smoke streaks of the flares are behind them, and then it gets caught in the vortex under the rotors, and it causes a little bit of a spinning motion. It's very neat to look at. We now see the helicopters continuing on their actions, firing off more rockets, that time going incredibly high. And now hitting the deck again. You have to... Oh, wow, wow. Does that look good or what, Matthew? That is a fine-looking helicopter.
Now, that is pretty cool looking.
That is really cool looking. This is an Mi-24P. This is one of these most... highly produced variants of the Mi-24 Hind. And in case of y'all don't know, the Russians have, well, at least on paper, they've largely ditched the Mi-24 and they've replaced it with a brand new Mi-35. And if y'all know anything about Russian military stuff, it's not brand new. It's literally just a redesigned, well, not even redesigned really, it's just more of a simplified version of the Mi-24. I'll show it to y'all right here. It's literally a Hind, pretty much, similar to the Mi-24V, which uses a 12.7mm rotary gun. Let me see if I can find y'all a higher definition picture like this one. And also, another thing, Matthew, you know what they did to upgrade and enhance this version of the Mi-24?
They added the Ukrainian flag to the side of it.
No! Close, but no. They made the landing gear non-retractable, so they actually decreased a lot of its mechanical complexity on the supposed more advanced version. Because if you look at older versions, like the one on this video, you'll see that the landing gear retract into the fuselage. However, on the Mi-35, that's not possible. It's like a Cessna's landing gear. It's just fixed in its position.
Now, that seems pretty smart because how much aerodynamic drag does it actually reduce to retract the landing gear?
I'm not exactly sure, but it still does show that the Russians apparently are trying to make things cheaper, even when they're saying they're getting better by not adding retractable gear. But then again, I can't really put a strike against the Russians for that, because if you look at an AH-64 Apache, the landing gear aren't retractable on it either. But I still think it was a nice feature. Anyways, that's the end of this video, and it's impressive to see these brave Ukrainian helicopter pilots out there still firing off unguided rockets in these older Mi-8s. You do have to remember, the Mi-8 is largely a transport helicopter, and for Ukrainian pilots to constantly be taking these things out and for it to be the workhorse of the Ukrainian helicopter force, these pilots have to be spectacularly brave, and they deserve a whole load of credit for what they do. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into our next bit of news from the Kherson area, where we can then see Ukrainian tanks advancing forward on the field. And isn't it beautiful? You hardly ever see it until today, but these are Ukrainian tanks, and they are here to win the day. Also, I got to mute that because it's got copyrighted music, but you can see a T-64BV. You can also see what appears to be a T-80 Oplot, I'm assuming, because it has those rubber pads that are attached to the ERA tiles. And you can see another tank moving forward. We have never seen Ukrainian tanks in action in this war until right now. And that lets us know that the Ukrainians are deadly serious about this counterattack because the infantry are being supported with armor. Now, we've already gone through the discussion this entire war, whether tanks are useful or not in the battlefield, but considering that the Ukrainians are using tanks, which are pretty much in the current day just a mobile infantry cannon, it does let us know that they are taking this counterattack seriously, and that because of this, the progress they're making may be pretty accurate. Although we don't even know what kind of progress they're making. Anyways, we're going to be moving further down the front line to watch the 24th Brigade hit a couple of BMPs. Here's the video. We can see the 3 BMPs here in the tree line on what appears to be a dirt road intersecting it. We can now see the drone flying over and the artillery slamming down, and boom shakalaka, the first one hits a BMP and sets it alight. The billowing black smoke lets us know that that was in fact a destroyed BMP, and another kill for the Ukrainians, and most likely will lead to that Russian unit retreating. With that, we're now going to be moving on into the next bit of news, further down the line even, getting closer to the city, where we can see more Russian equipment being destroyed today alone, this time by the Terra unit. We don't know a lot about the Terra unit, this is really the first time I've ever heard about them, but any unit, regardless whether it be new or old, destroying Russian equipment is welcome in my book. Also, we could see a quick little turret toss there, this time a little bit more sideways. You can see the turret there on the right side. Honestly, not a big fan of the sideways turret toss. It doesn't really qualify in the turret toss Olympics. It's got to be straight vertical. But we can see that the Terra group is still calling in artillery and hitting Russian units pretty accurately with it. We can now see an ammunition fire occurring near what appears to be an artillery piece. And oh goodness, that was a little bit of an explosion. Still laying down the fire. And even more fire. And a little bit more probably here in a second. We can see what appears to be a small ammunition fire occurring. Oh, wow, look at that. Did you see that? Look at that.
That was one of the really upgraded. Oh, I think you're talking about the controller they're using.
Oh, no, I was talking about that M4.
Oh, that's nice too. I like that controller too, man. It's like a whole touchscreen in their hands.
Dude, that guy's literally using like a Nintendo Switch to fly this drone. Gosh, dang, that honestly is an impressive controller. Everything here looks like it's from like the Gucci brand stuff. It's obviously civilian made, Matthew. Military grade does not look like this in any category.
Ruh-roh ruggy.
Ruh-roh. Anyways, we can see the artillery continuing to land down, and we can also see that the Terra group graciously highlighted exactly where the Russians are, which is very kind of them. It allows us to say that the Russians are being obliterated, like right there. We can see that the artillery continues to rain down, and it also appears that an ammunition fire may have been occurring over there. That's certainly an ammunition fire. We can see the Terra unit joking around, having a little bit of a laugh as they continue to make quick work of any Russian units in their way. We see the artillery continuing to rain down, and it is an impressive sight to see the destruction that a single Ukrainian unit is able to bring to bear against the Russians. And it lets us know that they are certainly doing a good job. Also, we can see that the Terra group, I'm assuming, took a picture at the end of the video and put it on here like it's the cast of Friends or something. But it's still great to see.
It does look like that.
It kind of does, doesn't it? But it's great to see the guys who are behind the drones and also the artillery. And I hope that they continue to rain down the fire on the Russians and bring victory a little bit closer each and every day. With that, we're now going to be moving behind the lines where I have seen a man eating a legend at this point. I don't know if this is something that Kherson was popularly known for before the war, but so far I've seen over the past 2 months a godlike aura being made about the Kherson watermelon. Now, here in the United States, especially in the southern United States, watermelon is just the summer treat. Everyone has watermelon. Matthew and me enjoy watermelon, and I love watermelon juice. Nothing can really top watermelon juice. However, I don't know if there's something special about a Kherson watermelon, because it seems like both the Russians covet, like you can see here, the Russians stole some Kherson watermelons and marked them with a Z.
Oh my. They made Z like produce stickers to put on the watermelons. What the hell?
They did, and I don't know what's up with Kherson watermelons, but for some reason, both sides covet these things and worship them practically, as we could see a huge deal being made today as the Ukrainian got a hold of a smaller Kherson watermelon and enjoyed it on camera.
Вот они, маленькие.
You see the man showing off the watermelon?
Херсонские.
You now see him eating it. And also, this is the kind with seeds. And what's interesting, well, you know, of course, I say that like that's brand new. There are seedless and seedless watermelons, and then there's just normal watermelons. But one thing that's really interesting to me, Matthew, is that this one is so small. It's like one of those small Japanese watermelons.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. I actually haven't seen a Japanese watermelon, now that you mention it.
Really? Oh, let me show that to you. They actually make Japanese watermelons that are square. They're very small, though, and they're incredibly expensive. You can see it right here.
What? Yeah, I've never seen that. A square watermelon?
Yeah, it's really crazy, isn't it? They say this thing's delicious. This thing's exorbitantly expensive. And I'm guessing that apparently Kherson watermelons must be of the same quality or flavor, because everyone is treating Kherson watermelons like it's the brand new, like...
And Enforcer, I will say, Biker Dad, who is Ukrainian, said that the Kherson watermelon are known for amazing sweetness. So apparently they're legendary.
I'm going to have to get a Kherson watermelon. And we can see this man making a treat of this thing.
Ребята, мы идем вперед. Сука, мы идем.
This guy is making a sales pitch for this thing.
Арбузики. Херсон, ми на твоїй вже території. Твої кавуни найкраще.
This has actually been a whole sales pitch for me on this Kherson watermelon. I feel like I now have to go get a Kherson watermelon for this reason alone, but I assume that it would be pretty difficult to get one because of the war, of course. But still, I want a Kherson watermelon now, and I want to see what it tastes like. Anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving further down the line, and from that interesting little video and tidbit that we got from Biker Dad, thank you, Biker Dad, for the little tidbit about the Kherson watermelon, and we're now going to be moving further down the line where we can see that apparently the situation in Kherson is so serious that the Russians have called in full-fledged close air support to try and help out their troops on the ground, so that way they don't get steamrolled as easily. Here's that video. And it speaks for itself. We can see that the Russians have apparently pulled out an Su-35. We see explosions in the distance. And we can now see a Russian an Mi-28 and a Ka-52. We can now see what may be an Su-34. And you have to remember this. An Su-35 or an Su-34 are two of Russia's finest aircraft in their Air Force. And a single Su-35 costs $85 million. And we've already seen about a dozen of them be destroyed at a single air base at Saki in Crimea. Considering that the Russians have lost that many, and they've lost plenty of others over the course of this war, along with Su-34s, which are similarly priced, you can get a very clear picture that the situation has gotten so bad for the Russians, they're now willing to throw out their most expensive aircraft onto the front lines and risk losing them in the numbers that they did in the beginning of the war to try and hold on to what they have. Now, that shows y'all, and that shows me clearly, that the Russians are not having the, I guess you could say, cakewalk that they were hoping they would have once the Ukrainian counterattack began. And so with that, that's the end of that video, and it's showing that the Russians are starting to view the situation incredibly serious, and they may be losing far more than we know right now. With that, we're moving on to our last video from the Kherson segment before I start talking about the overarching picture here, where we can see some suppose it may be Kherson area footage. We're not really sure, but we put it in the Kherson area. Because it says it's the TDF from Odessa fighting in the south, but that doesn't really give us a lot of idea of where this really is. Also, we're going to have to mute this, but we can see the Ukrainian firing off a shoulder-fired anti-tank missile rocket launcher. We now see some Ukrainians riding in the back of a truck. And I did vet this video beforehand. It does not give away the Ukrainian force locations. It doesn't give any kind of landmarks. We now see the truck racing along the road once more. Oh, wait a minute. Is that an SVD? We didn't see it long enough. We now see the Ukrainians moving around the field. And also notice that autumn looks like it's already coming in season in Ukraine, as some of the trees are already changing colors. We now see the Ukrainians firing off an infantry mortar. And now they're hanging out in a trench, having a little smile and a little laugh. Apparently the mud was a little slick in this area, and they had a little bit... You can actually see the truck up there sliding around, too. Take a look at that. That one was sliding around. This one just slid out of control. The ground's now turned into a schleck in this area, and so the truck just went headlong into a tree at like 5 miles an hour. A little bit of a silly goof. Hopefully it didn't damage the truck too much. You now see them trying to back the truck up. Now they're racing a BMP-1 through a field. Also nice camo net. Oh. What happened there? That was weird. Let's see here. Can you still hear me, Matthew?
Yes, I can. I saw it though.
All right. I was trying to figure out what was up with that. Well, you now see a Toyota. Oh my God! Wait a minute. Was that a Nissan or a Toyota? That's a Nissan.
So that looks like maybe a Nissan Frontier, potentially.
I was about to say, oh look, they got a modern Toyota, but it looks more like a Nissan, honestly. We see the Ukrainians doing a little bit more off-roading and inspecting a massive crater, and also racing an SPG.
Oh, legends.
Legend. As Balt and Bankroll would say, look at these guys, legends. But with that, that's the end of the video, and really impressive to see the Ukrainians appearing to have a pretty fun time with the counterattack so far. And from what we can tell from these videos and also Ukrainian reports, at least the somewhat vague reports they've been giving us, the situation is optimal. At least, and well in Ukraine's favor at best. It appears that the Ukrainians are continuing to liberate village after village, multiple villages each day, and not only that, the situation on the front lines are showing that massive amounts of Ukrainian forces are continuing to stream forward through uncontested territory at this point, pretty much, and maybe capturing villages as we speak. That is also paired with the fact that the Russians on that side of the river have been completely cut off. In case of y'all do not know, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense officially declared, although we have not gotten a video for it, I will trust their report, that the ferry crossing has also been knocked out as well, and the ferry sank somewhere in the Dnipro River, and they cannot recover it. And so, with that in mind, there are no bridges that exist across the Kherson River for supplies to cross from, and there is no ferry to cross from either. Now, I know that a couple of my viewers, including Mark Hodges, wanted me to come up with a spreadsheet and some information about how many supplies the Russians may be getting at this point and how much the Russians are consuming, but now that is pointless because the situation has now changed completely and in a really good way. There are no supplies crossing the Dnipro River as far as we know right now, and so all of the Russian forces on that side are having to make do with what was over there before the counterattack started, and also they're having to try and deal with the destruction of their supplies day in and day out like we've seen, and their supplies are dwindling faster than ever before and are not being replenished at all. And so the situation for the Russians is incredibly dire, and they'll most likely lose the Kherson area here soon. Most likely, when I say soon, I don't mean days, I mean probably weeks. But with that, we're now going to be moving out of the Kherson area and from that wonderful, impressive news. And we're now going to be moving up towards Russia, where we have a couple of videos from, you guessed it, the propagandists, and then we'll be moving down to Russia. And also, before some of y'all leave, and maybe not come back after the question segment, I would like to let y'all know that we're about to be going over something that's unbelievable. Ukrainian forces actually pushed into Russia today, at least on a small scale, and we'll be covering that here in the next segment, and also the location unknowns. But before we get to all that, let's get to the polls, address the polls, and then answer 3 questions from the chat. And after we answer those 3 questions, we'll then be moving on into the next segment of news. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, folks. So it's now time for our first question segment. But up first, to answer Barry's question, he said, remember that guest you guys brought on and had the mic pulled? He was a commie or something. And yes, that was Moscow Mike. We did pull the mic on him. And it led to that legendary moment between Moscow Mike and the Enforcer. I can't remember the exact words, but it ended with him leaving the stream very quickly. But anyways, moving on to our first poll. The first one said, should we continue with the Monday video news? This is one of the most overwhelming polls we've ever had. It looks like 95% said yes, and only 5% said no. So overwhelming support for the Monday news.
Now, you know what's interesting about that, Matthew, is that analytically, I was checking this out. It seems like YouTube so far has not been pushing our videos as much as they once did. Before the copyright strikes, our videos would normally get somewhere to around 50 to 60,000 views, maybe even up to 70,000 views a piece. And now, after the copyright strikes have been put in place, our videos are only getting somewhere in between 20,000 to 35,000 views. And I'm bringing this up not as a point of like a boohoo poor me thing, but if you do enjoy this channel and you're not getting a notification about our videos, it may be because YouTube is not pushing them. So if you would like, please make sure to check on our channel every once in a while, because we are trying to upload videos a little bit more frequently at this point. Also, just for those of y'all who were in the know a little while ago, we are still working on the Chinese-Taiwan invasion video. I haven't been able to get around to anything beyond writing up a limited script so far, but I will start recording the voice segments and also start working on the animations and such things. This video, at least my plan, is to make it far over the top in production quality compared to the rest of them, and see if this channel could start to enter that kind of category of video. But with that, now that we've covered all of that stuff for a second, I am glad to know, incredibly enthusiastic to hear that 95% of y'all did enjoy the premiere format. One thing, though, there are pluses and minuses to it. The plus is that a lot of people get to enjoy the news that couldn't enjoy the entire stream otherwise, and I really like that idea. The downside, however, is that if you do send in a super chat with a question, which I did see a couple of people do, the only thing I could do is respond to him in the live chat, because the entire thing's pre-recorded and then uploaded on that spot. And also, the other plus for Matthew and me is that we get to sit there and stay in the live chat and watch the video with y'all for about 30 minutes instead of a whole 3 hours. And so we're not really getting the Monday off anymore if we start doing that, but at the same time, we are cutting down on the amount of time we spend on the news on a Monday, if y'all see what we're saying. So that's kind of a benefit to us. And of course, I'm so glad to hear that y'all enjoyed that one. And so with that, now that we've addressed that poll, we're on to the second poll.
And also, folks, I've been asked a ton tonight, did I see the yeehaw in last night's video? And yes, I did. I heard that Ukrainian say yeehaw, and I went nuts over here in the house because I was watching the premiere as well. That was insane that that guy said that. I wonder if he was inspired by our stream at all, because that's not something that I think Ukrainians know much about, is a yeehaw.
Yeah,
unless I'm wrong.
Do Ukrainians, because they are into Westerns, say yeehaw? How to say yeehaw in Ukrainian?
There's a translation?
Apparently. How to say.org. Let's check this out. Yeehaw. Go. Apparently not.
It's just yeehaw.
Yeah, it's just yeehaw, I guess. Ukrainian phrases. I would watch that video, but I don't want to infringe on anyone's video. I don't think there is a yeehaw in Ukrainian, so I think that guy may have watched our channel, and if he did, I wish we knew, because that would flip me out if that guy had watched this channel and heard Matthew say yeehaw, and so he said it. That would be incredibly cool. But anyways, with that, let's move on to the next poll.
And the next poll was a pretty funny one. We should, or I said rather, should we go get a Kherson watermelon? 82% said yes, but stay packing, and 18% said no. What are you, crazy? What are you, crazy or something?
What are you crazy? Oh, wait a minute. What in the world is like Romanian New Yorker? What are you crazy or something? Forget about it. But yeah, I would love to get a Kherson watermelon. I don't know about Matthew, but I would go over there and I would. Well, I can't say this on YouTube, but I would. Well, I can't say that either.
No, you can't say that either.
I would do anything for a Kherson watermelon right now, if y'all get the gist. I can't say it any other way because then YouTube would be like, oh, kneecap stolen. But y'all kind of get the picture. So with that, I hope that addresses that poll. And I bet a lot of y'all would like a Kherson watermelon too. And so with that, also, Josh Cousteau just said, calm down, the enforcer. Yeehaw is a universal saying. So you're telling me, okay, so you're telling me that in Mongolia, there's going to be a man dressed up as a Mongol from the 1400s, and he's going to be throat singing, and he's going to go, hey, oh, yeehaw. Like, no.
What in the world?
Have you ever heard of Mongolian throat singing?
Yes, I have actually.
It's actually, since you know about it, it's pretty neat. It's kind of cool. It's a neat little genre of music. But I don't think yeehaw is that kind of universal saying. Maybe though, because I've seen a lot of cultures and a lot of languages pick up okay. Like, you know, they'll be sitting there talking in their own language, like a German will be saying like "Ich lieg befand okay," and then you're like, "Oh, wait a minute, what?" It's like they're speaking English for a second. But anyways, with that, we'll now move on into the questions.
All right, and for our first super chat, we have a $25 donation from I'm Your Huckleberry, who says, I appreciate all the work you two do to bring us legitimate news. Keep up the grind. And we will keep up the grind all the time.
Keeping the grind all the time. But I thank you so much for the support, and I thank you so much for enjoying this channel and also the kind words you gave us. And it means a lot to us. It really does that people enjoy this channel and want us to keep it going, because I've been here for 196 days, and I love to know that people still enjoy and appreciate our dedication on covering this war. I have seen that every single major news channel has almost dropped their coverage on the war entirely. They don't talk about anything about it anymore rather than the nuclear power plant, and that's on a very rare occasion. And I'm glad to know that a lot of people still care about Ukraine, still focus on Ukraine, want to help out Ukraine, and we see that all the time through our Sunday fundraisers, and that people still enjoy our enthusiasm and commitment to the war in Ukraine and our coverage of it. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the kind words and also the support, as the support also helps our channel to keep on rolling. As I've said many times before, without y'all's support, which is why we address the super chats, is because y'all are the only things that keep the stream running. And so if we don't have y'all's support, we can't keep going. So I thank you so much once again for the support, because it helps us every single day to keep this stream going and to keep covering this war. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $25 super chat from Praise Adonai, who says, Enforcer, I would like you to tell us what the importance of Ukraine to win this war actually is. What would the future of the world be if they lose? Slava Ukraine, great job, guys, and yeehaw!
Well, first off, Praise Adonai, before I get to anything, Slava Ukraini. Now, to answer the rest of that, to answer the question before I thank you for your support, which I always have to do, to answer the fate of this war and what this means for the entire world, this war determines whether the Russians will begin to emerge as their own sphere of influence again or not. They already admit their own sphere of influence, but what I'm talking about is on an overarching scale, maybe trying to get back into the international force exertion again. We know that the Russian economy is far too fragile and far too small for that to be done on a massive scale. However, if the Russians did win this war, this means that the balance of power in Europe is thrown back into Russia's direction, and a large amount of food exports and a lot of materials that the Ukrainians produce on a massive scale, like sunflower seed oil, wheat, among other things, will now be under Russian control again. Not only that, but the Russians will have secured pretty much an unlimited lease for the Black Sea Fleet to be based out of Sevastopol, although we've seen that the Black Sea Fleet is really nothing to hoot and holler about. But moving on from that, this puts Russia on a better footing for the future, and it also shows them that the West can be pushed around. If the Ukrainians lose, it shows that the West has too weak of a resolve to really do anything against the Russians. And so what's to say that the Russians don't start going for the Baltic states next, or Finland, which hasn't even joined NATO yet, as far as I know. They are in the application process, but they haven't officially joined. Or Poland. We already know, much like Hitler had the idea of Lebensraum in the Mein Kampf book, that Putin has already laid out his ambitions for Russia in the future, for it to reclaim Finland, the Baltics, Ukraine, and parts of Poland, which used to be parts of the Russian Empire. And with that in mind, it is very clear that Putin's ambitions are not only reaching into Ukraine, but they reach out into the rest of Europe. And so we have to stop this right here and right now while we can, before this does become a full-on Western issue. A lot of people always say, we could let Ukraine go. It'll become our problem when it becomes our problem. But they don't understand that once the Russians push towards Tallinn or Riga or Vilnius or Warsaw, that becomes the United States problem. And people want to say we shouldn't be supporting Ukraine with military aid or monetary aid or anything like that. We should just let them fight it out. And when they say that statement, I believe that these people don't understand that if we let the Ukrainians fall, American soldiers will end up dying in a war on the middle of continental Europe to defend our NATO partners and allies, because that's just the way it will go. The precedent will be shown that the West is weak. They can't even stand up to the Russians, and the Russians will feel emboldened to keep on pursuing the claims that they've already made at the very onset. And so that's the pretty much the lay of the land as far as I know and as far as my opinion is concerned. And that's why I find it crucially important for the United States to support Ukraine. And not only that, moving back to the economic side of things and also the alliance side of things, Ukraine would make a great friend of NATO and the United States. Not only would it put us in better reaching distance of Volgograd, which would make sure that the Russians never lash out in aggression again, they are also a massive exporter of food. They are a potential for a wonderful economy that could grow to unbounded heights. If we look at Poland's GDP, for example, which used to be a Warsaw Pact country, we will see that their GDP once was incredibly small. It was actually comparable exactly with Ukraine back in the 1990s. However, once the United States had Poland enter our NATO alliance, and of course a lot of our economic forms, you could see that there was massive economic growth in Poland, the likes of which was not seen in either Ukraine or the Czech Republic. And that gives you a pretty good idea. Once you become a NATO member, your economy largely does impressively well. And so the Ukrainians can have a far better quality of life as a Western partner and a member of our alliance than with the Russians, where you can see that growth has largely stagnated and died. And so with that, I hope that kind of answers the facet in every direction. It's to Ukraine's benefit, it's to our benefit, it's to all of the West's benefit that we make sure that Ukraine does not fall and ends up winning this war. And so with that, I hope that answers the question as best as I could. And thank you so much once again for the support, Praise Adonai. It helps this channel to keep on running so I can keep on answering really good questions like that one. I like that one because we haven't answered that in a long, long time. And so with that, we are on to the next one. I think this is the last one of this segment, and thank you so much once again.
And yes, this is the last one of the segment, and this one goes to Bob Dole, who puts in a $50 donation and says, "It frustrates me that Russia can level cities, take and hold ground, while Ukraine tries to fight back and retake ground while avoiding property and civilian casualties. Do you think this will become an issue for Ukraine going forward?"
Well, I thank you so much for the support, Bob. And also to answer that question, the Ukrainians largely do avoid property damage. They, of course, I guess you could say, possess the qualities and attributes of a Western army and emphasize a Western doctrine. And so they don't deliberately level towns like the Russians do. However, I have seen the occasional exception. If the Ukrainians have a drone and they can visibly see that Russians are commandeering and using a private citizen's house or private property for military purposes, I have seen Ukrainians level an entire block for that reason. And when I say that, they level the entire block that the Russians are in, along with the APCs, personnel, and everything else surrounding it. So it will it's kind of a hindrance in a way, but not quite, because the Ukrainians do have the reconnaissance to be able to see exactly where the Russians are in that village. And so if the Russians commandeer a house, they'll strike it. If the Russians are not in a house, they won't. That's unlike the Russians, which assume that every house has a Ukrainian soldier in it, and they bombard it whether there's a soldier in it or a civilian in it. So with that, I hope that does answer the question in a way. I don't feel like it will be a massive hindrance to the Ukrainians, also because of their superior training. They can go house to house and clear a village or a town, much like the United States would have, or the British would have, during the Battle of Basra, Fallujah, or Baghdad. All of those are excellent examples of how Western doctrine is far superior to Eastern doctrines like the Iraqis were using, and how street to street, building to building fighting can be done incredibly well without a large amount of artillery support. Now, during the Battle of Fallujah, that would be a little bit of a understatement. The Marines did use a decent amount of artillery in Fallujah, but during the Battle of Baghdad, the United States Army and the Marines, I believe some Marines were involved, they used almost very little to no artillery during that entire fight. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question the best I can, Bob Doll. And that was also an exceptional question. We're getting a lot of good ones tonight, and I thank you so much once again for the support. But with that, although we're getting impressive questions, I have to end the question segment here so that way we can continue on with the news and get to the next segment. Of course, if you have sent in a super chat, we answer every single one of them by the end of the night. And if you've sent in a live chat addressed to @Enforcer or @EnforcerMatt, we answer as many of those as we can. I have seen some people, and I would like to address this for a second. I have seen some people say, Enforcer Matt did not pick my question. I've asked this one for about 3 or 4 nights in a row, and I am sorry about that. But one thing that I hope you understand, if you are one of those people who are feeling a little disgruntled right now, we get 17,000 messages a night. Most of the time on the stream, and so we can only answer so many. So unfortunately, it's pretty difficult to answer everyone's question, or else every night we would have a 1,000 hour long stream trying to answer everyone's question. But we do try and get around to as many of them as we can from as many different people as possible. So once again, sorry in advance. I hope that kind of explains why that happens sometimes, but we are trying to get around to answer everyone's questions and take a look at everything we can. And so with that, we are now on to the next segment of news, which brings us to Moscow, where we can see that the Russians are pulling out the exact same line of reasoning that they pulled out on the Ukrainians. So, without further ado, here's the video. And this one's just silly.
Германии слишком мало вышло людей для того, чтобы попытаться
Now, look at this. Look at the phrasing of this statement here. Too few people rallied to try to overthrow the regime that has seized power in Germany. Are the Russians just completely ignorant of an actual democratic system, or are they just stupid? Because
Both.
yeah, I would have to say both. Honestly, I don't think they know what a real democracy is, and I think that they're too stupid to understand that people can get elected and people can also get thrown out, and that just happens in a real democratic country. They're now calling the German government a regime that seized power. They call the Ukrainian government under Zelensky the exact same thing. And we know good and well that election transparency and fairness in Germany, at least on paper, according to the scores that are given by international organizations, are one of the highest in the world. Germans are very scared of corruption by and large as a culture and a society, and so for the Russians to say that a new regime has seized power in Germany like they're Adolf Hitler or something is just insane, knowing all of that going into it. So here they go, once again, coming up with a whole web of lies about the Germans, and now they're trying to put them in the same camp as the Ukrainians with this statement.
захвативший режим власть в Германии. Можем ли мы себе позволить поддержать эти протесты? Наверное, можем.
I guess we can. Oh my god. These people are delusional. They can't even pave the roads anymore in Russia, and they're asking, can we support these pro-protesters? I think we can. With what? Confetti? What in the world are you going to give them? Stamp steel? Some oil? What are you going to give them? The Russian economy is dead. It's fallen apart over the past few months. They got nothing to do or nothing to give, or even money to give them. What in the world will the Russians do at this point? I don't understand the kind of delusions that these people live in. With that, we're now moving into the next video, which is of the Russian clown ship of Moscow. This stuff that this guy said today was also insane. I think I'll have to read this one off to y'all, but let me just read it to y'all so that way y'all can get the insanity of it. In conditions where a very difficult winter in economic turmoil await Britain, the choice of prime minister is crucial for how the country will get through these challenges and threats. We remember how Britain overcame challenges and threats during World War II, and what the name of the prime minister was. Winston Churchill. Yes, he was anti-Soviet and an enemy of Russia, but at the same time, he was also an outstanding politician of that past world. Well, at least, I'll give this guy credit. At least he recognized that Winston Churchill was a decent statesman. Now, I don't think that gets political at all. I think everyone can agree that while he did have a little bit of a problem knocking back too many cognacs each day, he was a pretty good prime minister, at least while he was in office. But now let's move on to the rest of his statements. We remember Margaret Thatcher, too. She had her own war, the Falklands, which she won. The baton that is passed today to Liz Truss. She has her own war, shall we say, the Second Crimean War, but in Ukraine. What this stupid... the Second Crimean War, but in Ukraine. Pray tell, Mr. Propaganda Man, where was the first Crimean War? Matthew, would you like to take a guess at where the first Crimean War was?
Germany. No, Crimea.
Duh, Crimea. What in the world is this guy talking about? But in Crimea. The first one was in Ukraine. The second, even if he wants to call it the Second Crimean War, it's still in Ukraine. And Great Britain will lose this war. We are saying without any schadenfreude, but with an absolute certainty that our cause is just. And wait a minute. Let me go back. That our strength enables Russia to count on victory in the special military operation. Oh man, I feel so patriotic for Russia with these stupid statements they keep on making. I wish there was someone like Gordon Ramsay who would criticize stupid statements like this. Wow, this is just terrible. Wow, it's just absolutely awful. Because the Russian propagandists are about some of the dumbest people in the world. And at the beginning, he just hopped from everything in the statement. He hopped from the British having to deal with the cold winter, which is apparently going to be a massive issue, to Churchill in World War II and overcoming challenges there. And then he goes to the Crimean War and calls this the Second Crimean War. This guy literally touched every base he could in the book. And the story at the end was Russia will win because Russia is strong. It's pitiful. It's sad. The Russian propagandists really need to up their game, but I don't think they can because that's about the smartest propagandists you can find in Russia. With that, we're now going to be moving down to the border of Russia where reality kind of takes place and where we can see that Ukrainian forces were inside Russia and executed a raid at a village called Repyakovka in the Belgorod Oblast, taking out a trench digging vehicle. And so here's the video. We can see a Ukrainian drone setting off in the morning mist, and we can also see a couple of Ukrainians making their way down this dirt road deep into Russian territory, a few miles behind the lines, to this trench-digging vehicle. And there's the trench-digging vehicle right there. It appears to be one of those rare tracked Arctic vehicles that we saw at the beginning of the war, and I don't think it will... I think this vehicle may go from being rare to extinct, as it looks like the Ukrainians may have destroyed it. Well, I'll assume that the insurance won't cover that one, and especially considering that it happened on Russian territory. Now, in case y'all don't know, Repyakovka is right there, and if we measure the distance from Ukraine to Repyakovka, it's a whole almost 2.5 to 3 miles inside of Russia. And somehow, Ukrainian forces, against the massive, invincible Russian army, were able to walk 3 miles across the border, blow up a trench-digging vehicle, and then walk back without even getting hurt. Honestly, pretty bad look for the Russians, but an impressive look for the Ukrainians that they'd have the balls to just walk across the border, blow something up, and then walk back. So with that, we're now going to be moving on into our location unknowns, and we have some insane, and I mean literally insane videos to watch today in our location unknowns. Starting off, we saw the Ukrainians commit a drone attack. Oh, apparently, this has now been marked as not safe for work. Not safe for work means it's not safe for YouTube in our context, and so unfortunately, I cannot show you all this video. However, there is a workaround for this. You can go to the description in the link in the description below to the day 196 map and open up this map and watch this very clip for yourself. Unfortunately, I won't be able to show it on stream though. With that, we're now going to be moving on into our next bit of location unknown news, where we can see that a bomblet was dropped onto Russian positions, specifically in this little rabbit hole. That's music. We can now see the VOG on its way, and it's a hole-in-one. The drone operator behind this drone must be Tiger Woods, because now he's going to get a hole-in-two. With that, that's the end of the video, but it's great to see that the Ukrainians can pinpoint some dead-on accurate fire with those VOGs dropped from a drone. You gotta remember how crude that system actually is, and how much leeway that bomblet can have as it falls, and somehow the Ukrainians are able to accurately place those things over and over. With that, we're now moving on into the next bit of Location Unknown news, and this has got to be the most beautiful clip I've ever seen of a HIMARS battery in action. The scene is perfect. It looks like a Windows screensaver, and the little HIMARS launching off their missiles in the field. It's all impressive to see. Here's the video. I've never yeah! This is the most picturesque scene in a war I've ever witnessed. Just look at that, Matthew. That literally looks like the Windows XP screensaver right there with some HIMARS on it.
It really does, actually.
Windows...
Oh, you're going to pull up the screensaver right now.
Yeah, Windows XP background. There it is, right there. It looks just like it. Literally. It's just
somewhat.
It's just a little.
The grass
duller.
could be greener.
Well, the grass is always greener elsewhere, but I gotta say that this is really close, and I gotta watch that again. Man, that is just impressive. And what a picturesque place to fire off the HIMARS at, too. With that, that's the end of the video, and we're now going to be moving on into our next one, where you see the Ukrainians using an SPG-9 in a building, and they said, screw the backblast, we're firing this thing in here. So you can kind of see how it turned out, but I think they're okay.
Oh.
They kicked up a little bit of a drywall, a little bit of insulation,
This one guy over here behind the wall was like, I'm out of here, I'm gone.
Yeah, he was standing right here, and then he kind of rounds the wall.
Oh, wait a minute. Did they have other, like, shells on the ground next to it?
They did, but it looks like they didn't go off. It looks like they just flew, made a little bit of the drywall fly off, and maybe some of the roof, too. But with that, that's the end of the video, and that was pretty crazy to see the Ukrainians taking a little bit of a risk and firing an SPG-9 indoors. So with that, we're now moving on into the next video, and they only get crazier from there, y'all. So if you think that one was crazy, it's getting better. We can now see some peons firing in this video. We've seen this a lot, a little bit normal, but it does get crazier from here. Also, once again, firing from the Windows XP screensaver. This time, the grass is green enough. Man. Every time I see one of these peons... Now, they're not the most impressive artillery system on the field anymore, but every time I see them, they just look like the definition of firepower. These things are really cool looking to me. Of course, performance-wise, they're not up to spec anymore with an M777 or a Caesar SPG or a Panzerhaubitze 2000, but the caliber is larger, and I do have to say, these things are what you would imagine when you think of heavy artillery. With that, we're now moving on into the next bit of Location Unknown news, where we saw probably one of the baddest things. A Ukrainian main battle tank rolled almost point-blank range onto a Russian BMP-2, and as far as we could tell, it was still active. and they blew it up. Here's the video. Y'all got to see this thing, and it looks like it immediately went for the turret toss competition on the spot. Here's the video. It's kind of short, but it's bat crap crazy. Oh my god.
Wait, what was that?
That little speck of black you saw flying out of frame, Matthew, was the turret.
Oh,
Oh my god.
dang.
Oh my god.
I would rate a 10 out of 10.
That was a 10 out of a 10. Let's watch that one more time. Oh my god. I have never seen anything like this before. I think this qualifies as abuse. One more time. Oh my god. It was in frame for 3 frames. That's the end of
Do I have it right to say that it's a design flaw that causes it to do that?
Yes, it is a design flaw. Usually the Russians qualify that as a gesture of goodwill. But when we actually get down to the specifications, it's not in the manual. It's not supposed to do that. But I gotta tell y'all, getting to this video and analyzing this here for a second, I've never seen anything like that before. The straight up abuse that BMP went through right there is unbelievable. And it's crazy to think that the Ukrainians drove right up onto that thing and we're just like, yeah, hit it. So with that, that's the end of the video. And we're now going to be moving on. And if y'all thought that was crazy, I think the rest of them, as I recall, are about as crazy. So with that, we're now going to be watching a Caesar SPG firing at the Russians again. Oh, gotta mute that. But we can see the we can see the Caesar firing. Once again, got a lot of respect for the Caesar SPG. It is one of the easiest shoot and scoot vehicles in the war, beyond your normal SPGs like a Panzerhaubitze or an M109 or 2S3 or anything like that. It is an impressive vehicle. With that, that's the end of the video. Once again, great to see a Caesar in action, and we're now going to be moving on into the next one, where we can see some Russian POWs, specifically 2 of them, and it looks like they're chilling. Here's the video. Ooh, that's music. Sounds like music. It sounds like kneecaps being taken out. But we can see Russians down there in the trench, and we see that the Ukrainians apparently captured them in their foxhole, or the Ukrainians have brought them back to theirs.
What is that guy doing?
It looked like, I don't really know. I think he was just sitting there. But with that, that's the end of the video, and it's great to see that the Ukrainians have been able to capture more Russians, which means they're overrunning positions, and the Russians are most likely retreating from those areas. With that, we're moving on into the next video, where we can see some destroyed Russian positions. And these are destroyed. That is a video of victory. That kind of destruction of Russian forces and watching the Ukrainians roll right by without any resistance lets you know that the Russian lines in that area, at least in a small way, have fractured, and the Ukrainians are making a small breakthrough, at least here in this video. We don't know where this was, of course, but it's still progress. And progress, as we all say, is progress. With that, we're now moving on into our last bit of Location Unknown news after that stupid little laugh from me, where we can see the Russian losses for September 6th. It finally happened. The Russians have lost 50,000 men. They've lost another 9 tanks today, 25 armored personnel carriers, another 22 artillery pieces, 2 MLRSs, no new anti-aircraft vehicles, no new planes, a brand new helicopter, no new boats, 9 drones, 2 special equipment vehicles. One of those was most likely the special equipment vehicle that was inside Russia. 19 logistics trucks, and lastly, 4 cruise missiles. These kind of losses are on par, they're comparable with the kind of losses that a nation would have taken in the Second World War day by day. It gives you a very good idea that the Russians are losing this war, And as far as the Kherson offensive is going, it must be going incredibly well. These kinds of losses have not been seen since the very opening days of the war, when the Russians were conducting offensive operations over every square mile of ground that they were taking each day. Now with the Russians not conducting any offensive actions whatsoever anywhere in the country, and the Ukrainians now on the offensive, they are now once again taking an unholy amount of casualties in every category. This lets us know that the Russians will most likely be collapsing in the Kherson area probably soon. With that,
Now, Enforcer, I have to ask, because I saw some guy over there on the comment section of this tweet. He said, what are Ukraine's losses? And we did get that question quite a bit on the stream. I was wondering, do we have those numbers?
unfortunately, we don't. The Ukrainians have not published any numbers, and we would now. I say this, but I have to immediately counter it. We would use Russia's casualty statistics on the Ukrainians.
Oh, absolutely not.
But the problem is that they said in a single day they destroyed 44 HIMARS, but we know that the Ukrainians only have 24 of them. And so unless if the Russians destroyed all of Ukraine's HIMARS and then destroyed Poland's as well, there's no way that they could have done something like that. And so there are no reliable figures that we can go off of to get Ukrainian casualties. The best thing we can say, however, as a rough estimate, is that we have a general idea that the Ukrainians have taken around a quarter of the casualties that the Russians have taken. And so if we multiply 50,000 by 0.25, we can get an estimate of how many Ukrainian soldiers may have been lost so far in the war. So 50,000 times 0.25 means that probably around 12,500 Ukrainian soldiers have most likely been killed in this war, and around an additional 30,000 wounded. However, that's a very rough estimate. We still don't have any official figures to go off of there. But once we get them, we will try and report them, because we try and report on everything we can in the war. And while Russian casualty statistics are just impressive to see, you know, with how many casualties they're taking, it would be good to know how many the Ukrainians have also taken, to get a base as to how well the Ukrainians are actually performing against the Russians. Because if the, I guess if you could say, which sounds very crass, the kill to death ratio is greater than 4-1, the Ukrainians are doing incredibly well. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from this last bit of Location Unknown news, and we're now moving into the Kharkiv segment, the entirety of the Donetsk area, as well as Berdyansk, and also the speech from President Zelensky. But before we get to all of those, we are now going to move into our second question segment of the night, also address some of the polls, and once we address those polls, we'll move into the questions, and after we answer 3 questions from the chat, we'll then move into our final question segment, well, news segment of the night. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, folks, for our second to last question segment of the stream, up first, we do have one poll to address before we get to our questions, and this poll required a little bit of thinking. And the question was, do you think Ukraine is of equivalent significance right now as Poland was during World War II? It looks like 47% said yes, the situation is identical, 35% said somewhat, gotta wait and see, and 19% said no, not comparable. I've seen good arguments for both, yes and no, but for me, I would have to fall on the yes side. It seems to me that Ukraine is the significance of Poland, because if Russia is to take Ukraine, it's like the equivalent of Germany taking Poland. That can spark a world war, in my opinion, because they're not going to stop at Ukraine if Russia actually takes it. But Enforcer, what are your thoughts?
I would have to agree. You actually summarized it quite well. That I do believe that Ukraine is in the position that Poland was in the Second World War. This is the do or die situation. Either we quell the situation now, or it turns into World War II, or World War III in our instance. In World War II, just to give you all an instance of how this could have gone, the Germans diverted their entire military to the east to tackle the Poles during 1939. That left the British and the French pretty much entirely on their own and to their own devices on the Siegfried Line as well as the Maginot Line in the west. The Germans, well, the French and the British at the time didn't know that, but if they had actually started to push forward and into Germany, there would have been no forces to really counter their advance for probably an entire month or two, which means that they probably would have made it as far as Frankfurt and the entirety of the Ruhr before the Germans could have done anything. And by that point, the Germans would have lost their industrial heart, which would have led to a somewhat quicker Second World War that wouldn't have spanned out into the, I guess you could say, cataclysmic event that it became. And that's the situation that we're in now. However, the West is not getting directly involved. So to try and summarize this the best I can, I'm trying to think about how to summarize that in comparison to Poland. Right now, the Western world is is in the situation that the British and the French found themselves in 1939. Either we sit here and wait the thing out and don't do anything and see if Poland can hold its own, or in the modern day, if Ukraine can hold its own, or we provide a whole load of support, training, and all the resources that we can to make sure that Ukraine can end this war and the war stops here and it doesn't go any further. And so I would have to heavily agree that Ukraine is in the position that Poland was in the Second World War. Now, I want to say this. I butchered that heavily while I was trying to say that. I was trying to gather my thoughts, and I'm sorry if it didn't come out clearly, but I hope it came out in a way that was somewhat understandable. And so with that, I hope we were able to address that poll fairly well. And with that, we're now moving on into the question segment.
All right. And moving on into our super chats. Up first, we have a $25 donation from Telmed, who says, do you think the entertainment industry is in dire straits due to bringing Avatar back to the theaters?
That's an interesting question. I actually did not know that Avatar was brought back to theaters. But if we pull up the highest grossing film of all time, it was Avatar. That is nuts, honestly, because that is the most forgettable movie ever. I don't know if you remember it, Matthew, because I hardly remember it, but it was I can't get on it because apparently I guess, whatever it is, but let's go here real quick. So it was Avatar, released in 2009. The freaking movie grossed $2.8 billion, and everyone forgot about it next month. It was honestly a lame movie. As far as I remember, it was about like blue aliens and some trees. And it was kind of lame. I don't know how it grossed that much money, but I would have to say that the film industry is in dire straits considering that this movie is now around 12 to 13 years old. This would be like re-airing I Love Lucy on a normal TV channel, in replacement of Shark Tank or something. That I would view that as the same. So I would have to say, although that's not on the topic of Ukraine, it's a great question. And in my opinion, I would have to say that the film industry must be suffering if they're having to go and blow the dust off of their their distribution license for Avatar and start airing that again. Also, another thing that I'm looking at here, it's really interesting to see the top grossing movies because a lot of them are movies that I may have watched a little bit. I never watched Avengers Endgame, however, but that appears to be the most recent highest grossing movie. Spider-Man No Way Home apparently did pretty good. Top Gun Maverick is climbing on up there. It's number 12. It apparently grossed $1.4 billion. And gosh, I wonder what the payout is to the actors on the movies that make this much, because I think actors get paid a percentage of the movie, or do they get paid a contract? I don't know which one it is in particular. I don't really know. Is it, Matthew, is it a contract or is it a percentage?
And the question was what again?
How do actors get paid on films? Is it a contract or a percentage?
I think it might be a contract.
Interesting. I would like to know that actually, but we can see, are there any ones? Incredibles 2 actually did well. Beauty and the Beast did well.
Incredibles was ahead of its time.
Incredibles was ahead of its time. I didn't like Incredibles 2. In my opinion, sequels always lose the essence of the first movie and what made it good. The first Incredibles was great because it had that 60s-esque feel to it, if y'all know what I mean. And that's what made it cool. And then the second one took some of these 60s-esque elements, and then they took everything else and made it modern day. And moving beyond the plot and everything, because the plot was decent. It wasn't the best thing on earth, but it was still okay. I just didn't like how Incredibles 2 kind of veered off the whole 60s deal, because that's what made the first one an incredibly cool atmosphere. Anyways, let's scroll on down. Lord of the Rings actually did pretty okay. Toy Story 4 and wow, the Toy Stories do really well, apparently. At least Toy Story 3 and 4 did. But man,
I'm seeing some people say that the actors get royalties too on the merch.
Oh yeah, merchandising apparently, according to what I know on movies, is where most of the money is made. And so that's why you'll see nowadays Disney, they'll throw in like that fluffy creature, like the fluffy bird-looking creature thing or whatever in Star Wars, because it was merchandisable as a plushie, and so they threw it in the movie and made sure that it was on screen enough that people want to be buying the plushies. Which is interesting actually. It's interesting how the whole film industry works, and interestingly enough, I guess you could say Matthew and me are kind of in it in a way, although we don't make movies.
We are?
I mean, like, I guess. I mean, like, we're running a live stream. We're breaking the fourth wall here, but, yeah, I guess. But anyways, with that, that's the end of that little question. I hope that answered that pretty well and also dived into it a little bit. Also, Stevie G just said Red Dawn. First one was incredible. Remake, absolutely terrible. Also, I hate how they airbrushed out the, I can't say the exact country that they airbrushed out, but I really hate it how it was the North Koreans that invaded the country, because that didn't make any sense. The original Red Dawn had a incredibly believable story with how America was invaded, although we know it would never have been invaded, but still,
Enforcer.
Huh?
I hate to say it, but I'm getting bombarded with messages saying focus.
All right. So with that, we'll move on to the next one. And thank you once again for the support. I hope you enjoyed this little segment.
All right. And up next, we have a super chat from Manuel Suezo, who puts in a $20 donation, who says, Slava Ukraine from Chile.
And also, Slava Ukraini from Lee Spring Army Headquarters. And thank you so much for the support. And thank you for helping this channel keep on running. And so with that, we are on to the final question of this segment, and then we'll be moving on into the next and final segment of news.
And the final comment of this segment goes to Gary Robbins, who puts in a $20 donation and says, Slava Ukraine.
And Slava Ukraini. And thank you so much for the support, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. Without y'all, it wouldn't be possible, and I thank y'all so much for bearing with my massive movie rant, because I don't get into movies a lot. I don't really get into modern culture a lot, or get into it or watch it or anything. But still, the behind the scenes of things and how they do work in the modern day is always interesting to me. But with that, I digress. Thank you once again so much for the support, and we're now going to be moving on into the last segment of news. Starting off in the Kharkiv region, where we saw that the 229th Battalion destroyed a couple of MTLBs. Everyone likes an MTLB. They're pretty much the Russian equivalent of an M113, and we saw 2 of them get splattered today. Watch and observe as the Ukrainians show how to erase an MTLB with one simple trick. We see the drone now zooming into that location again, and we see a little bit of smoke coming out of the tree line. Now we see a lot of smoke coming out of the tree line, and that MTLB is cooking. Do you smell what the Ruski's cooking? Because I think it's nothing good. That MTLB is just continuously roasting down there. MTLBs don't really carry a massive amount of ammunition. The best that an MTLB can get, even if it is that variant, is a small turret with a machine gun in it. So most of that fire is being caused by like the padding on the seats or anything else that's flammable inside of it. Also, at a certain point, the metal, considering I think it's made out of aluminum, it will get hot enough that it will burn on its own, which is also interesting. And we're not going into the metallurgy of the thing, but it's still pretty interesting to think about. Anyways, we do know that the Ukrainians are conducting an offensive in the Kherson area, well, the Kharkiv area, as of right now, but we don't have an idea as to how successful it is, or if there is any real progress being made from it. And so with that, we're now going to be moving out of the Kharkiv area and past the Chuhuiv area and down to Balaklia, where we saw an S-300 get destroyed today. The Russians will be missing this a little dearly. When you see the drone looking at the S-300 right down there, and all of a sudden, it's dead. Oh, God.
Golly,
oh,
what
golly.
did that do?
I don't know. Look at that, though. Like, you can see the skeletal outlines of the trees for a second. It got so bright. Jeez. They won't be getting that one back. Man. With that, that's the end of the video, and we can see that the Russians are now down and out an entire S-300, and probably with the crew as well. We're now going to be moving on into our next bit of news from the Donetsk area. We haven't gotten a lot more news from the Izium counterattacks so far. This video clip that I attached here, it's somewhere in the area, but we're not sure if it's attached to the Izium counterattack. So for now, it appears that the 93rd Brigade may be taking a break after the Battle of the Ridge, and so with that, I'm now going to show this video, which we're assuming occurred somewhere in the area, of Ukrainian soldiers on patrol from the 79th Airborne Assault Brigade. We can see the soldiers on patrol. This guy's got some kit. This guy actually looks like he's going on a camping trip. See the soldiers continuing to move down the street. And interesting enough, if you look at this, each Ukrainian soldier in this video appears to have a different kind of backpack. And also, it looks like they're putting their bedrolls in different areas. This soldier has his bedroll on the bottom of the pack. This soldier has his bedroll on the top. And I was actually about to say earlier, I held judgment for a second, but I was going to say I think it would be a lot more comfortable because Matthew and me have actually gone hiking before, although it was only once. We will go into that story another time, probably, maybe during this question segment at the end of the stream. But we went hiking before, and I learned, and Matthew learned, both at the same time, that putting the bedroll on the bottom like that, it smacks against the back of your leg, which is okay at first, but once you start walking miles, it gets incredibly annoying, and so we both rigged up our bedrolls to be on top of the backpacks instead of the bottom after like about 3 miles worth of walking. Also, Kolchak said bedrolls make for great butt pads on the bottom. I would largely agree. We never sat down with the backpacks on. We usually took them off, but I wouldn't doubt it. Also, Mr. Attitude said they got bedrolls, meaning they're advancing. That is also true. These infantry are kitted out for an offensive, pretty much. And you can tell that certainly by the loadout they're taking. This isn't a defensive where they're working from a base. They're now advancing and having to make a base elsewhere. Also, I just saw someone in Vitali said, do you think their backpacks are full of Kherson watermelons? Maybe.
It should be.
Yeah, if they're on an offensive, a sweet, delicious, watery watermelon. Well, not a watery watermelon, but you get the idea. Watermelons are full of water. That's why they're called a watermelon. That would actually be pretty good idea. And also,
Man, you know how good the square watermelons would pack.
Oh my
God. The Japanese watermelons would be perfect.
Imagine shipping those things. There is no space lost with a square watermelon. You can stack them on top of each other like boxes, literally. That's actually really smart in terms of logistics. Maybe everyone ought to start growing watermelons as a square. They grow them in Japan though in a box, so I don't know how economical that would really be to make them all like that. But still, it is an interesting idea. Food for thought, although it's a dumb idea, honestly. But with that, we can see the 79th Airborne Brigade continuing to advance, and it's great to see that the Ukrainians are on the offensive and that they are kitted out for one as well. Moving on past the cave monasteries, Slavyansk and Seversk, we haven't heard any news from these areas today, largely because the Ukrainians are on the counterattack here, and so they're keeping their news very concise and only giving out information when they want to. And we also know that the Russians have pushed to the Seversky Donets River across its entire length, and so in that regard as well, there's not a lot of room for activity in this area anymore. With that, we're now moving down into the area of Soledar, where we saw a picture that said a lot. They say that a picture's worth 1,000 words, and this one's probably worth a little bit more than that. Oh my. That doesn't look normal. Let's discuss this for a second. So, this is an Su-25 from Russia. It's flying over a field in this picture, and as you can tell, the canopy's gone. Now, if y'all know anything about jets and how fast they fly, considering this one can go about 500, 600 miles per hour, you generally get a good idea that you want a canopy on that thing because it protects the pilot from getting wind blasted to the point his skin gets peeled off. However, this one also appears to have some sparks flying around and maybe some bits of the plane, and it looks like the plane may be in bad shape. So to explain exactly what happened in lesser words than what I'm doing right now, this is a Russian Su-25 that got slammed over the fields of Kherson. The plane rolled over, and the pilot ejected as it was facing upside down. Did the pilot survive? Probably not. Did the plane survive? Definitely not. Did the Ukrainians shoot down another Su-25? Yes. Is that good? Yes. That is this video. That is this picture in under 1,000 words. And this gives you an idea that the Russian Su-25s are apparently not having a fun time either now. And so, yes, to answer Alex Wolf's question very concisely, this is a picture of a Russian Su-25 that got shot and the pilot ejected while the plane was upside down. But still, great to see, and it's good to know that the Ukrainians are still knocking out some Russian planes. Can we all get an LSA in the chat for that? Anyways, with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next bit of news, which is out of the Soledar area, and more south, more towards the Svitlodarsk area, where we saw a Russian tank get obliterated today. And the tank's right there. And boom goes the dynamite. Tank's gone. Turret toss is had to go. It looks like the turret went pretty high, actually. I would assume 150 feet straight up. And then right back down. Nice to see. And another tank destroyed. And so with that, that's the end of the video, and great to see that the Ukrainians obliterated another one. With that, we're going to be moving out of the Bakhmut area, because while we know that the Russians may be trying to conduct some kind of offensive here, it doesn't seem like it's making any progress anymore, anything to even note, because we hear every single day from the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, the Russians launched another attack, it failed. The Russians launched another, it failed. And it's been like that for about 3 weeks at this point, so largely uneventful at this point. We're now going to be moving out of the Bakhmut area and down towards the Pisky area. We don't know where this is exactly, but it is in the Donetsk area. And we saw more Ukrainian soldiers on the move, this time on a BTR, and a lot of them. Ooh, that's music.
Ooh, that is so loud.
And that was loud. My eardrums are bleeding. But man, look at that. That's a lot of soldiers on the move. And that's a lot of potential right there. A lot of potential. With that, that's the end of the video. And it's wonderful to see that the Ukrainians are on the move in every area of the front. With that, we're now moving out of the Donetsk area because beyond that, there's not a lot to report from there today. It seems like the front line may be remaining stagnant for now. And in the southern front, of course, it is the same. Nothing is happening. However, partisans are starting to ramp up their activities a lot. Today they attacked another Russian official and this time got in a prolonged gunfight with the police. Here's the video. Well, here's two separate videos showing the details of this attack. First, you can see another car, it blew up and black smoke was billowing off of it. And you can also hear a gunfight in between the partisans and the police. Now that's
not your typical reaction from the civilians.
No, it's not. It seems like they might be trying to wait around and see if any of the Russian, I guess you could say, military police or quote-unquote peacekeepers may be getting it. They're kind of like, ooh, wait, let's see if something good happens here. With that, that's the end of this video. And we also saw a second additional video from another angle showing the fire from that car. Or what may have been another fire. We're not exactly sure. When we see the fire right here in the distance. And this is the second time that a larger partisan attack has occurred within the city of Berdyansk. And it's showing us a very interesting sight. From those two videos alone, we're getting a really good idea that Russians are losing control even within the city centers. I guess you could say in terms of keeping partisans quelled. We knew that early on in the war, partisans were beginning to operate within the villages and countryside of Ukraine because they were capturing the occasional Russian and the occasional vehicle. But now it seems that they may have been armed well enough and have gotten brazen enough to now begin attacking Russian officials and Russian police within the cities themselves. Which shows us that apparently they're getting even stronger and are going to become a major tie-up of Russian resources, time, and equipment to try and put these partisans down, which will make the Ukrainian offensives on the front lines themselves a lot more efficient, considering there will be less Russian forces there, and the Russians will be scared of being attacked from the behind by the occasional partisan. With that, that's all the news we have from Ukraine today, and so we're now going to be moving up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Zelensky and round out this news segment here on day 196 of the war in Ukraine. And so without further ado, here is President Zelensky's speech today. And also, let me unmute it, and here we go.
Українки, маємо сьогодні важливі події. Європейський Союз зробив суттєвий крок у візовому питанні щодо громадян Росії. Єврокомісія затвердила пропозицію призупинити спрощений візовий режим, який зараз діє між ЄС і Росією. Звичайно, це ще не повний візовий бан, але це вже демонструє громадянам держави-терориста, що вони несуть певну моральну відповідальність за агресію своєї держави проти України і всієї Європи. Зараз така ситуація, коли не можна мовчати і не можна не протидіяти терору. Абсолютно неприпустимо, що європейською територією можуть користуватися для туризму чи для шопінгу ті, хто у себе вдома в Росії не тільки підтримує розкол і знущання з Європи, але й працює на них. І не можна сприймати спокійно, що російські пропагандисти досі мають можливість перебувати в європейських країнах, щоденно брехати у репортажах і включеннях з європейських столиць. Брехати про Європу, принижувати Європу і при цьому перебувати в Європі. Абсурд, який треба негайно припиняти. Я вдячний пані президентці Єврокомісії Урсулі фон дер Ляєн та усім європейським лідерам, які підтримують візові обмеження для громадян Росії. Маємо пам'ятати, окрім моральної сторони питання, це також питання елементарної безпеки. Вже неодноразово Росія спрямовувала кілерів у Європу під виглядом звичайних туристів. На шпіль у Солсбері, на німецькій вулиці та склади зі зброєю в Чехії вони вже надивились. Досить. Європа не місце для прогулянок вбивць і тих, хто їх підтримує. Друга важлива новина. Звіт МАГАТЕ, місія, яка побувала на Запорізькій атомній станції, представила документальний підсумок своєї роботи. У звіті відзначається присутність російської військової техніки на території АЕС. Акцентований тиск на наших атомників. Є чіткі посилання на російську військову окупацію. Це добре. Щодо пропозиції генерального директора МАГАТЕ Гросі створити зону захисту на станції, то треба дивитись на конкретний зміст такого інструменту, що саме може бути захистом. Якщо зміст цієї пропозиції полягає в демілітаризації території АЕС, а це логічно, бо саме російська військова присутність поставила Запорізьку станцію на межу радіаційної катастрофи, то ми можемо підтримати таку демілітаризовану зону захисту. В будь-якому випадку відчувається, що сучасні міжнародні організації потребують значно більш широкого мандату на свої дії. Я вважаю, що світ не просто заслуговує, а потребує того, щоб представники МАГАТЕ змусили Росію до демілітаризації території АЕС і повернення повного контролю Україні. Якщо Росія поставила світ на межу радіаційної катастрофи, значить у світу мають бути відповідні засоби, щоб поставити Росію в умови, коли держава-терорист з Нью-Йорку, там перебуває наша урядова делегація на чолі з першим віце-прем'єр-міністром Юлією Свириденко. Протистояння російському терору, захист нашої держави відбувається на різних рівнях. Оборона йде поряд з дипломатичними зусиллями, інформаційною роботою, обов'язково економікою. Збереження і створення нових робочих місць в Україні, залучення інвестицій, бізнес-проєктів, розширення логістичних можливостей, захист наших потреб у фінансовій допомозі – все це абсолютно необхідно. І необхідно зараз, коли війна ще триває. Одна з найвідоміших бірж світу, Нью-Йоркська фондова біржа – це одне з найкращих місць для привернення економічної уваги світу до України. І сьогодні на біржі був Український день. І цей Український день розпочав глобальну кампанію промоції нашого економічного потенціалу. Ми зробимо все, щоб провідні світові бізнеси працювали з Україною і в Україні. Очевидно, що ключовий виклик при цьому безпековий. Постійно вдосконалюємо наші можливості реагувати на цей виклик, захищати нашу державу і наших людей. Хочу сьогодні подякувати бійцям, які особливо відзначились у цьому. Тільки за першу половину сьогоднішньої доби вдалося збити 5 з 6 російських ракет Х-101. Це дорога втрата для Росії. І це порятунок багатьох українських життів. 4 з цих ракет збили військовослужбовці повітряного командування «Південь». Молодці хлопці. Також особливо дякуємо сьогодні воїнам 79-ї десантно-штурмової бригади, яка на Донецькому напрямку героїчно стримує ворога. До речі, хочу звернутися сьогодні до усіх наших людей, які створюють інформаційну картину так чи інакше. Будь ласка, звертайте свою увагу і увагу суспільства на те, що жорстке протистояння триває майже по всій лінії фронту. Це 1300 кілометрів активних бойових дій. І це просто несправедливо, коли про окремі ділянки фронту говорять дуже багато, а про інші нібито забувають. Хоча наші воїни на багатьох напрямках абсолютні молодці, абсолютні герої. І на Донбасі, і на Харківщині, і в Запорізькій області, і на півдні, і у прикордонних районах півночі та сходу країни. Захист всієї держави потребує однаково щирої та серйозної уваги. Провів засідання Ставки Верховного Головнокомандувача. Максимально швидко і точно вирішуємо усі питання, пов'язані з просуванням наших Збройних сил, знищенням окупантів. 50 тисяч російських життів вже пішло на цю абсолютно безглузду для Росії війну. І окупантів не хвилює навіть такий рівень втрат. А нас хвилює кожне життя наших героїв, наших захисників і захисниць. Ми робимо все, щоб берегти життя українців. Я вдячний партнерам, які допомагають нам із цим. Сьогоднішній мій дипломатичний день почався о 8 ранку з розмови з пані Ненсі Пелосі, спікеркою Палати представників США. І, як завжди, продуктивно і дуже тепло скоординували наші кроки в захисті України і свободи, як такої, від російської агресії. Вдень говорив з прем'єр-міністром Нідерландів Марком Рютте про посилення санкційного тиску на Росію, про нову оборонну і макрофінансову допомогу нашій державі. Дуже вдячний. Щойно говорив з новим прем'єр-міністром Великої Британії, пані Ліз Трас. Це була її перша розмова у новому статусі з іноземним лідером. І це велика честь для України. Я привітав пані прем'єр-міністра з початком роботи на посаді і відчуваю, що ми зможемо побудувати глибокі та результативні відносини. Час, коли пані прем'єр-міністр починає роботу, дуже складний. Російський енергетичний шантаж, постійні намагання держави-терориста дестабілізувати політичну ситуацію в Європі і у вільному світі, постійна російська дезінформація. Але, зберігаючи нашу єдність, працюючи у повній координації, ми і це можемо подолати. Обговорили, як ще посилити тиск на Росію, щоб ціна за агресію для неї постійно зростала. І щоб так само постійно зростала оборонна підтримка нашої держави. Почув дуже вагомі слова і щодо нашої співпраці, і щодо майбутніх безпекових гарантій для України, і щодо відбудови нашої держави. Дуже важливо, що Велика Британія зберігатиме лідерську роль у консолідації вільного світу і захисті свободи. Запросив пані прем'єр-міністра відвідати нашу державу і дякую за чітку впевненість у тому, що Україна і вільний світ неодмінно переможуть у цій війні, розв'язаній Росією. Дякую всім, хто захищає Україну і свободу. Слава Україні!
Slava Ukraini. And that is the end of President Zelensky's speech. And that wraps up our day 196 news. I thank every single one of y'all who were here for the news segment alone for watching. And if you are new to the channel, please make sure to subscribe because these streams run every single day of the week, maybe even Mondays now. We're still trying to figure that out. It'll most likely be a premiere if it is. And we cover the past 24 hours of the war every single day. We always try and corroborate our news with video and picture evidence. And so with that, thank you all to everyone who watched the news once again. And with that, we're now going to be moving into the question segment, which will last for the rest of the night. And we're also going to hand it over to Matthew so he can guide us through the polls. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and moving on to our final question segment of the night, the moment everybody has been waiting for, we are going to address our 2 polls. So up first, the first poll was, should NATO take a do-or-die approach to stopping Russia in Ukraine? It looks like 49% said yes, we should go all in. 36% said yes, but don't send in the armed forces. 12% said no, we should be cautious about war. And only 2% said no, Ukraine is not vital to NATO. So I would have to personally disagree wholeheartedly with that option about Ukraine not being vital to NATO. I think it is quite vital. And I would have to go with the yes, but don't send in armed forces answer, which was the 36%. But Enforcer, what are your thoughts?
I would have to go with... Can you reread off the first 2 options for me? Because I'm in between those.
So the first 2 options were yes, we should go all in. And the second one was yes, but don't send in the armed forces.
I would have to say for now, yes, but don't send in the armed forces, because I think that while supporting Ukraine is important, we are in the process of supporting Ukraine, trying to avoid this turning into a world war. And so if we involve our soldiers, we're kind of negating the purpose of supporting Ukraine in the first place, and may as well just go into the war already as a preemptive strike against Russia. So I do think that we should go all in, but not send in the army just yet. But of course, that's not a permanent thing. My opinion would change as the situation changed. But with that, I hope that does answer the poll in a way for me. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And real quick, I'm trying to troll hunt here while I'm also reading off the super chats. I'll have to find the troll in just a minute. But the next super chat, or excuse me, next poll, I said super chat. But anyways, the next poll said, is Zelensky looking rather energized and spry tonight compared to the past few speeches? It looks like 73% said yes, maybe he got some rest. 19% said somewhat, can't really tell. And 7% said nah, he looks wrecked, sadly. I think personally he's looking better tonight. He looks like he's had some caffeine or something. He looks quite spry. So, Enforcer, what do you think?
I actually think he does look a little bit better. And also, interestingly, he keeps on growing out the beard. And something I was thinking is that he's never had a beard before in his life. And I wonder if he has the beard because, one, he's too busy to shave or something else. I'm not exactly sure. But he does look better tonight. Okay. He does look more energetic. I will say that. So with that, I hope that addresses the poll in my opinion. I was trying to figure out what more to add there. There's not really a lot more. But with that, we're now going to move on into the questions themselves.
And moving on into our super chats, we first have a $20 donation from Compound David, who says, go Shakhtar Donetsk, crushed RB Leipzig in Champions League today.
Hey, well, thank you so much for the support. And also, that sounds like a European football shout out. And of course, the only European football team I know from from Ukraine is Kyiv Dynamo. I don't know any others beyond that. And one thing that may actually shock you all is that while I don't know a lot of the players, I do know some of the teams out there. Like in Switzerland, there's like FC Basel. In Britain, in Britain, there's Arsenal. There's Manchester FC, like FC Manchester in Germany.
There's I think it's called FC Chelsea, the one that the oligarch had.
Oh yeah, FC Chelsea is that one. Let's see what else. I think there's some big players in Spain, like Valencia. I think Valencia is one of them. But with that, I hope that does kind of address the comment in a way. I don't know a lot about European football, but it is cool to hear that the Ukrainian football team did win again, and that the Ukrainians keep on setting an international precedent that they're pretty good at what they do. And so with that, I'm sure that a lot of prestige comes to the Ukrainian population when they think about how they're able to dominate in some sports, much like the United States gets a lot of patriotic prestige out of the Olympics, because we usually go into the Olympics, whether it be the Summer or Winter Olympics, and we just dominate them, and then every other country is competing for second, which is really nuts to think about, is that the United States puts so much effort and time and money into making sure that we have impressive Olympic athletes. But with that, I hope that does address the comment in a way, and thank you so much once again for the support and letting us know. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Wookie KS, who says, thanks for your Monday offering. It took the edge of my Monday withdrawals. Slava Ukraine.
Slava Ukraini. And also, thank you so much for enjoying the little Monday clip. I did my best to try and make sure that it was informational and interesting. And also, another thing that was really interesting to me is that the initial trend was that people unsubscribed while watching that video, which was weird. 5 people unsubscribed. And, of course, now it's gotten me a total of 37 new subscribers as of right now. I actually checked during Zelensky's speech, because I was like, how good is that video doing now? But that was really interesting to me. But a lot of y'all loved it. A whole, like, overwhelming. It was unanimous. Y'all loved that. And I'm glad that y'all did, because I wanted to do something like that on Mondays. And of course, I hate this, but I can't respond to people who send in super chats today. That's the one drawback, is that there's really not a lot of interactivity there. But of course, y'all super chats help us to keep doing this. And so, regardless whether y'all send them in or not, I thank you. I thank everyone so much who did send them in, like Enforcer for President, who sent in a load of them. And I hope that you did enjoy that little premiere, and every single one of y'all did. And so with that, thank you so much once again, and we're on to the next one. And I'm glad you did enjoy it. I'm glad that did get your Enforcer fix.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Will Riley, also known as Dick Cheney, who says, Mr. Cheney hails the counterattack and, of course, drops some Cheney knowledge. On this date in 1620, those crazy Thanksgiving-loving pilgrims set sail from Plymouth, England, aboard the Mayflower on their way to America.
Well, I gotta thank you so much for the support, Dick Cheney. And of course, I thank you for dropping a word of knowledge in here. Of course, if y'all do not know, it would be the Pilgrim. Well, they weren't exactly the first, but they would be the first in the New England area. They would set sail from Plymouth Harbor, and you can actually find the place. You can actually find the exact dock they would set off from. Did you know that, Matthew?
Wait, what again?
You can find the exact dock that the Pilgrims set off from on the Mayflower to New England.
I did not know.
I'm trying to find it real quick. It's still here. Let's see.
Oh, that's it.
I don't think I'm not sure if that one is it.
I just made that up.
Let me pull it up real quick. Pier that the Mayflower set sail from. Mayflower would sail from the port of Rotherhithe in London. What? I always heard it was in Plymouth. Mayflower docks at Plymouth Harbor. There it is.
Yeah, I thought that's where they docked.
Let's see. Oh my God. Are you? Am I? You know,
you had it backwards.
I know. I gotta thank my 10th grade history teacher for really screwing this one up, because they would found Plymouth Colony, and she said that they launched from Plymouth Harbor, and that you could still find the dock they were at to this day. So from now on, I'm not going to draw on my public school knowledge anymore, because apparently it was wrong. And that's about the 80th time that I found out that this specific teacher was wrong. So with that, look, I thank the Alabama public education system for making me look like an idiot in front of 5,500 people again. And we're going to forget that I ever said that. So with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again, Dick Cheney, for letting us have the interesting fact.
And Dick Cheney just got the Enforcer all messed up, so congratulations, Mr. Cheney, for doing that. But anyways, up next, we have a $20 donation from Psyops. He's been anticipating this super chat for quite some time now. And I'm not sure, I can't remember what he was talking about, so here we go, I'm going to find out. He says, Slava Ukraine, Artem here with Flex. Oh, here he goes, okay. Artem here with the flex tape. Flex tape can repair most anything. Now watch as I saw this orc army in half. Now that's a lot of damage. Not even flex tape can fix that hole in their front.
Can you copy paste that into the live chat real quick, and I'll take an attempt in reading it?
Yes. Was his name Artem though?
I thought it was Phil Swift with Flex.
Yeah, I thought it was Phil. I thought it was Phil.
All right, let's see here. Let me think. Let me think. I would pull up the ad, but we would get copyrighted for it. So let me think. All right. Let's see. Let me try this. All right. A little bit of pressure's on me here because I've never done a Phil Swift before, but hi, Phil Swift here with Flex Tape. Flex Tape can repair most anything. Now watch as I saw this orc army in half. Wow, that's a lot of damage. Not even Flex Tape can fix that hole in their front. Ba-dum-ts. Hopefully that was good.
Wow. That was good.
So with that, I thank you so much for the support, Cyrus. Also, that was a really good one. I love that. And I hope that y'all enjoyed both Matthew and me trying to imitate Phil Swift with Flex Seal and Flex Tape. Well, really the whole entire Flex line of products. They've now come up with a whole fleshed out brand for that stuff. And also, I love the lot of damage. That's a lot of damage. And so with that, thank you so much once again, Cyrus, for the support. And also, thank you for the great jokes. You're always throwing down incredibly good jokes. And the best one, I have to say, the best one you've ever done so far, the running joke, is Texas stinks. Now, I know we got someone in here in the chat right now that's moving like, Texas does not stink. And of course, it's all in good humor. Texas does not stink. Honestly, I think that Oklahoma and Texas are literally pretty on par with each other, really. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Psyops, and thank you for throwing down another good joke. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And I saw somebody say, rip Billy Mays. I think Billy Mays had OxyClean. And I think it's Phil Swift that has Flex Tape. But Billy Mays was the original guy before Phil came along. So rip Billy Mays and his OxyClean. I think OxyClean's still around, though. So
what
anyways,
about the slap chop?
I saw somebody say that, too. And I saw the parody. I like that one better.
Hi, guys. We're here with the slap chop. You put it down, slap.
And the ShamWow. I remember that, too.
Yeah, and then that guy went to prison. Man, life is
Really?
weird. Yeah, he went to prison. I forgot what it was for. It wasn't for any, like...
Wait, slap chop somebody?
No, let me actually pull that guy up. He was the ShamWow slap chop guy. ShamWow guy. There he is, right there. At least I heard that he went to prison. Let's go click on his Wikipedia. Let me make sure. What the? A sticky. Hi, guys. I'm here to sell you the sticky. Let's see here. Lawsuits. Arrest. Here it goes. On February 7th, 2009, Offer and a 26-year-old prostitute were arrested in Miami Beach, Florida, after a physical altercation. Sounds like
oh my.
It sounds like he's getting in some pretty crazy stuff. The police report stated that the woman had bitten into Offer's tongue and refused to let go, at which point Offer began beating her and left her with lacerations and fractures. Police later released photos of the bloody Offer, hotel room, and the battered woman. Prosecutors later declined to file formal charges against either person. When Offer later spoke of the arrest, he stated, "It probably saved my life. Also, by the slap shop." But with that... That's the end of that little story, and I was right. The guy did get arrested. And so with that, we are on to the next one. I hope that kind of talked a little bit about the famous, I guess, household name salespeople of America. And with that, we are on to the next one.
I would have never in a million years thought that was the story. But anyways, moving on to our next super chat, we have a $20 donation from BC Skyman, who says, how do the Ukrainians prevent the Russians from stealing their drones with electronic jammers? Thank you guys for the unparalleled support and news from Ukraine.
And thank you so much for that kind words and support. And also to answer that question, there's really no way for the Russians to counter that as of right now. The technology, as far as we know, doesn't really exist. The anti-drone gun, from my understanding, disrupts the connection in between the controller and the drone itself, and when it does that, it's apparently is able to send in a signal to the drone that force lands it at its exact location, wherever it is when it was hit with this beam. And so for now, there is really no way for the Russians to counter that, unless if they were to try and go into the programming and maybe have the drone fly in some random direction and then land a mile or two away from where it was zapped. But beyond that, there really is no way right now, as far as my limited knowledge of drones and, breaking their connection and how it works. So with that, I hope that does kind of answer the question in a way. Once again, I want to say this. Take it, as everyone enjoys their steak on the Enforcer channel, with a side of a grain of salt. Take it with a grain of salt, because I'm not a technological expert, especially in that kind of field. And so while that's my understanding, I could be wrong. So don't quote me on it, but that's what I'm thinking right now. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again for the support. And I hope that answered the question fairly well.
And up next, we have a $15 super chat from Duncan VR, who says, Matthew forgot to say ba when he was in Ukraine in Monday's clip. And yes, that was a very long flight back, by the way. That was a long distance to go to say yeehaw. But anyways, he did say yeehaw. The Russian Z stands for zoo animals. There are many ranks. Oink, oink, ba ba ba, woof, meow, woof, ba, woof. Putin has shaky legs. Chop them off.
That's whiplash. Good Lord.
That went from some innocent animal noise to absolute chopping.
Hey guys, we got the slap chop. Put Putin's legs in, slap. You got minced legs. Slap it again, boom. You got Parkinson's. But moving on from that, I thank you very much for the support, Duncan VR, and also subjecting Matthew to what he dislikes the most, which is animal noises. Also, one other thing. That was really quick turn in that super chat right there. I did not see that coming. And when Matthew sat there and threw that in at the end, I was like, what in the world? But I do thank you so much for the support once again, Duncan VR. It does help us out a lot. And also, it is a pretty funny super chat every time you send it in. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from William Allen, who says, U.S. GIs send our dialects and slang around the world because of the World War I and II. Hollywood movies, radio, and records and sports are also a great spreader of the American languages.
And that's true. And one interesting thing that I've found so interesting about the modern United States is that a lot of people don't really know, will insist, and I've seen this on both sides actually, that America does not have a culture. And that says a lot about American culture, is that it's so impervious and has become such an international thing that American culture seems to not even exist because it's just so prevalent. Like, think about it. A hot dog and a hamburger are American foods. They are culturally American. They're from the United States. Same with chicken a la king. However, when you travel around the world, you will think that the hamburger and the hot dog are just normal worldwide foods and not really culturally associated with America. Because if you go to Britain, there's Five Guys. You go to Germany, there's hamburgers. You go anywhere, there's American food. Not only that, there's loads of American culture. Every single nation in the world has watched an American dubbed film made in the United States based around American stuff. And so when you think about it, it's really crazy to think that there can kind of be an argument made, kind of like you could make for the Roman Empire, that the Roman Empire, at the time, considering that it spanned the entire known world as far as the Europeans were concerned, except for the Germanic areas and the Slavic regions that would encompass Russia, Ukraine, and the other states out here, they were their culture was kind of there, kind of not. It was just the go-to standard around the known world at that time. And so the argument could be made that the Romans didn't really have that much of a distinct culture either, because it was just so universal. But that's always something interesting to me about the United States, is that you can go anywhere and American culture is there. You can go to Korea, you can go to Japan. Interestingly enough, Matthew, did you know that in Japan, they are really into cowboys?
No way.
Yeah, that's the craziest thing.
I thought they were into anime.
They are into anime, and they're also into catgirl cafes. That's kind of pervy. But
James May.
Yeah, but moving on from that, they're really into cowboys. You can actually pull up Japanese cowboy, and you'll probably find a lot of pictures on here of Japanese people who dress up like cowboys, like these. And they're really into it, much like Americans are into samurai. You know, because there's a large amount of Americans over here that fantasize about the ideals of the Bushido and the samurai. And in Japan, it's the opposite. They look to America and they fantasize about being a cowboy. It's the most interesting thing. It's really weird, but a lot of countries are like that. And it's really crazy to think about how the United States has really spread its cultural, I guess you say, facets around the entire globe. You can go anywhere and you will never escape American culture in some way, shape, or form. And so with that,
Definitely the companies. The companies are everywhere.
I-
It's
I-
like when that one time we went to Britain. Of course, if you're an American and you go to Britain and you see a Five Guys and then you see a British place, or at least us, we're going to go to Five Guys because it's the safe option. So we missed out on the culture over there.
and yes, that is true. That's really true. And also, I saw Andrea Reese say Romans did have their own culture. That is true. Yes, I'm not arguing that Roman culture didn't exist. It certainly did. However, think about it. Rome expanded over the entire known world at that time. This is what I was trying to get at earlier. Hopefully, I can flesh it out, make it a little bit more sense now. The Romans did have their own culture, obviously. However, if you went to, say, Gaul, which is modern day France, they would behave like Romans. You go to Rome, they behave like Romans. You go to what you would call it? Man, I forgot the name. I forgot the name of the Spanish peninsula. Jeez, are you kidding me? I would know this at any other time. Anyways, you go to the peninsula that encompasses Spain and Portugal, they would act like Romans. You go to the Balkans, Romans. You go to modern day Turkey, which would become Byzantium, the Byzantine Empire later on, Romans. Everyone acted like a Roman. The only people who really didn't act like Romans during the time I remember, because they were only controlled for a short amount of time.
Iberia.
Yes, the Iberian Peninsula, that's correct. And I see some people saying Hispania. Either one, it's interchangeable. But the only people who really didn't conform, well, they kind of did in the end, when you think about it, even though it was for a short time, would be the Hebrews of Israel, which is a really interesting little thing. That's why you would hear about the Zealots and other things in Israel during that time. I don't know a lot about antiquity, but still, think about it. Everywhere you went in the Roman Empire, there wasn't really a lot of change in the culture. As far as we knew, it was a set standard. The houses were the same. The conducting of business was the same. You may get to the far stretches of the frontier, like in the area around Scotland, but even then, you were still in Roman territory, and it was very Romanesque. So, with that, I hope that kind of fleshes that out a little bit, Andrea, because it was kind of misspoken there, but I hope that kind of explains why I'm saying that back then you could make the argument that Rome was culturalist, because their culture just spanned the entire known world at that time. That was the set standard. And there may have been a tiny cultural variation in places like Gaul and Iberia, but at the same time, Roman culture was under all of it, made up the base of everything, and so it just seemed like the going standard. And so with that, I hope that kind of fleshes that out a little bit more, and thank you once again so much for the support, and so much for letting me go on this massive tirade about how culture works. And so with that, we're on to the next one, and thank you once again.
Up next, we have a $20 super chat from Justice Ryan, who says, is it true or fake that North Korea is sending shells and rockets to Russia? And how's that champagne for your and Matt's 1-year celebration?
The champagne was non-existent. I hate to say it, but I'm honestly not a big fan of drink. However, if I was a big fan of drink, it would be pretty good, hopefully. Now, to move on to the other one, could you reread the first part of that one, Matthew?
So the first part was, is it true or fake that North Korea is sending shells and rockets to Russia?
As far as I know, that may be fake. We have never gotten any video evidence of North Korean trains moving across the border and into Russia. Also, the amount of time and effort and materials that it would take to ship over what would probably be an inconsequential amount of equipment all the way from an area like Vladivostok to the west of Russia would probably be more expensive than it would be to just get the stuff out of a stockpile on the western side of Russia and then ship it down to Ukraine. But then again, it could be happening. It's just that we don't have any evidence to back up the claim. So for now, I'm going to say no, but if we do get any information to show otherwise, I will change that statement. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question, and thank you so much for the support, and also a pretty interesting question. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a super chat from Zyper Sniper 1, who puts in a $20 donation, and he says, pick a random question in the chat. This one is on me, Slava Ukraine, and Slava LSA. And Zyper Sniper, you've been doing this quite a lot recently, so very generous of you, and also thank you for the support. And we will, as always, honor your request. And we're actually going to go up to the live chat here and see which questions I have. And it looks like Just a Bill, you are the lucky viewer that Zyper Sniper paid the way for to go ahead and have his live chat question answered, who says, how long until the mud is expected to return and hampers movement of the heavy vehicles?
Most likely it will be occurring in mid-October. If we go off of the seasonal trends, it should be mid-October, although it could be earlier or later depending on this year's weather. But around that time, the mud will begin to form across the entirety of the country, and it will become a slush pit. At that point, the Ukrainians will most likely have the upper hand by far, because the Ukrainians do not rely, although that may be changing right now, on armored vehicles as much as the Russians, and so the terrain will then benefit them more so than the Russians' plans and objectives. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question, and I thank you so much for the support. Once again, kind of a short answer, but that's really all I can add to it, is when Rasputitsa will most likely begin. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and I hope we answer that question fairly well. And with that, on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from William Allen, who says, Enforcer and Enforcer Matt, both Germany and Russia invaded Poland in September of 1939. They split the country in two, not comparable because Poland faced both at the beginning of the war, then suffered Russian again. So I would say good point. But specifically, I was referring to Germany and Poland's relationship with the way they attacked Poland and the way that Russia is attacking Ukraine. And could that spark a world war? Because Poland, to my understanding, was the catalyst that basically started World War II, if I'm right, Enforcer.
That would be correct.
So yes, that's how I was comparing it, but I do see your point. And now I'm going to turn it over to the Enforcer to give his perspective.
That was a great point, and I completely didn't even mention the Molotov-Ribbentrop Act. Pact, not act. However, in relation to the Soviets invading Poland, no one really cared. Particularly because the British and the French didn't really want to deal with that either. So they just kind of left it alone. However, that is a good point. But I would still have to say, my point does kind of stand with how the Germans could have been defeated well earlier on in the war if the French and the British had acted quickly instead of just waiting to see what would have happened in Poland. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question fairly well, but thank you once again for providing a little bit of historic context that I forgot to point out. It does make a little bit of a difference, and I'm sorry that I did forget to mention that. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again for giving us a little bit of a tip there.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Problematic NA, who says, because yes, I don't have any other real way of keeping up with the progression of democracy if not for this stream. I would spend a lot of time looking and not finding what you do, so thank you very much.
And I thank you so much for the support. It does mean a lot to us, and I'm glad that you do enjoy these streams and the effort we go through. This does take some time. I will admit, though, tonight, because of a lot of things that happen in the background, when I walk to college, I walk like a whole mile to class and then a whole mile back, and it's in the middle of the southern midday heat, so it's like extremely muggy and humid out, and I always feel filthy whenever doing that. Like the air just makes you feel gross. So when I came home, I tried to hammer this out as quick as I could, got it done in a record amount of time, and I went and took a shower so that way I'd be clean. But I do thank you so much for the support. I do my best to try and find every single bit of news I can and make sure to report on it in a way that makes sense and tie together things to make certain pictures seem so, because by and large, video evidence is a pretty good indicator of what's actually happening in larger areas. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, and I'm glad that you do enjoy this channel. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again for the support, and thank you for the kind words as well.
And I know somebody's about to say it. Somebody's about to say, Enforcer, a mile's hardly anything. I walked 5 miles through the snow every day to school and back.
Yeah.
You're a wimp.
And
I know somebody's going to say it.
And I would agree with that. However, if that was the case, then why in the world are parking decks built onto...
There, somebody said it. Somebody said, Scott Mensing said, uphill both ways, barefoot in the snow. Everybody always says the same thing. It's always through the snow.
Yeah, but my thing though with southern heat, and I don't think now I know that no one's well. If someone's done this, I'm sure that they have. I'm sure I'm about to say something. Someone's gonna be like, "Ha! I lived in the Earth's mantle for 9 years." But I have gone out on the 4th of July in 98-degree weather with 100% humidity, wearing nothing but wool, and nearly died from it. And I know what heat is like. I don't enjoy heat. If I can, I avoid heat the best I can, which is sad because I live in the South where it's always hot. But I just can't stand heat. I can't stand the mugginess and the humidity of it. I just don't like it. I would rather walk through snow than walk through the heat, honestly. Just how I feel. And I know that someone's about to say, a mile isn't far. Matthew and me once hiked 10 miles straight, nonstop, through the middle of the night with one flashlight.
1 day.
Yeah, in like 3 hours, I believe. It was like 10 miles in 3 hours. We were like at a fast speed walk the entire time. So I know what tough is. I even walked through the whole middle of London, all the way from Paddington Station, which is right here, all the way from Paddington Station here to the Tower of London over here. And I know that doesn't seem like a long distance on this map, but that was a total walk of like 6.5 miles through the middle of the city. And we went through some kind of sketch areas actually, and we lived. So I've done a lot of walking, but I'll tell you this, none of that was in the heat, and I'd rather do it anything rather than walk in heat. That's just my opinion. But with that, we are on to the next one, and I hope that kind of addressed that whole thing that Matthew pointed out of, oh, you haven't done anything.
And up next, we have a super chat from Tangen, who I think was formerly Tangen Bragiri. I can't remember for certain.
It is.
But anyways, it is. Okay, how about that? They put in a 500 Swedish kroner super chat. So thank you very much for that generosity. They say Slava the Enforcer, Enforcer Matt, and Ukraine.
Well, let me see if I can do all those in a Zelensky voice. Slava Ukraine. Wait a minute. Slava Ukraini. Slava Enforcer. And Slava Enforcer Matt. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support, Tangen. And also, cool to see that you are from Norway. This time, I hope I'm getting it correct. NOK currency. I must make sure, because last time, I think I got this mixed up with Sweden. It is the Norwegian.
Swedish kroner.
It is the krona. And so let's take a look at a random Norwegian town in honor of your 500 kroner donation. Let's look at Oslo, the capital of Norway. Not really random, but I want to take a look at it. Man, that's a nice place. This is a real nice place. Wow. And look at that. Look at the size of this train station. And this is impressive. One second, let me drop down here. Looks like they even have a tram station in front of the train station. Train station is like some kind of super mall or something. There's the train station. Man, Oslo is impressive. I like it. I would like to go there one day and check that place out. But with that, I thank you so much for the support once again, Tangam Bragiri. I know it's just Tangam now, but I want to call you Tangam Bragiri still. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you so much for the kind words as well. And of course, Slava Ukraini. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And real quick to address the poll. The question was, do you think American culture has weakened other cultures around the world? And kind of in reference to what the Enforcer was talking about earlier, basically American companies are everywhere now. So it looks like 41% said somewhat or both. 32% said yes, it has taken away uniqueness. And 26% said no, it has only improved the world. Now for me, I would have to say both, because if you have the same places everywhere around the world, how's it really different? But also at the same time, I can see how it's improved the world as well, because now everybody has KFC and they didn't have that before. So good for them. They had that extremely salty chicken. But anyways, Enforcer, what are your thoughts?
In my opinion, I would have to say it's actually taken away uniqueness. Because one thing that is very sad to me is that no one will ever have the experience anymore of hearing of a friend that came back from Japan and hear them tell stories about interesting foods like sashimi and sushi and ramen. All that stuff you can get here in the United States now, and it honestly feels like it's like kind of kind of devalues culture in a way, especially with the United States and how we've expanded out in the other direction, and now you can go get a hot dog and a hamburger anywhere in the world. I think it's neat for a country to have something of its own. Like if you go to Germany, you'll have bratwurst and you know all the other kinds of traditional German foods, mostly sausages. And if you go anywhere, it'll be like that. And I just find that neat because it gives you a reason to travel. Now that almost every country has every other country's food and some creature comforts within their own borders, it doesn't really incentivize a lot of people to travel, and it doesn't really make these places feel as unique and as special as they really are. You know, like you kind of lose the authenticity of the thing because you've already gotten like the light version of it in your own country. That's something that I kind of, you know, like miss when you think about it. It's like, wouldn't that be crazy living in America? You're eating a hamburger and someone tells you about some kind of crazy food from Japan, like sushi, and you're like, what in the world is sushi? Like, maybe I'll go over there someday and try it because it sounds good. You know, like you can never do that now because you can just go to Publix and get a sushi roll. You know, you can get a real sushi roll, California sushi.
I know people are about to bash the public sushi. I see it coming.
Oh yeah, yeah. Public sushi is not exactly real sushi, but it's still sushi in a way. And you know, I honestly feel like American culture, while it will spread, that's just inevitable. I wish it could be kind of contained, so that way when you do go to another country, it's like, oh, it's Germany. You know, it's like or Poland or Ukraine, and there's nothing like from another country there. It's really just like, wow, look, these people got their thing going for them. You know, that's really cool. Look, they got their own foods. Like the Ukrainians got borscht, and they've got all kinds of other foods. And it's not like, oh, you know, I'm feeling like Five Guys tonight. You know, that's just me though. That's my opinion. I just like to think that each country can have a special, unique thing going for it, and it's not just all over the place where it makes it kind of a run of the mill sort of thing. So with that, we are on to the next one. I hope that addresses my comment on the poll.
And up next, we have a super chat from David Moyers, who puts in a very generous $50 donation. And he says, has Enforcer Matt got a better chair yet? How about a new award, the Tunguska Blast? And David, I actually have gotten a new chair. It's one of those ergonomic chairs, so it took me a while to find one that I liked, but I think it's pretty good. It's probably going to stay. But yes, I'm glad I got a new chair because the other one was really killing me. And also, how about a new award, the Tunguska Blast? So I'm going to let the Enforcer take it from here.
That's actually a really good one. I think he's talking about the Tunguska meteorite of 1905. And if you're talking about that, that would be a cool idea as an award. I think we may give that out to Ukrainians if they blow up a Russian tanker and ammunition depot well enough. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope we were both able to take it part in answering that question equally. And with that, we're on to the next one. But before we move on, I saw Magic Sky Girl say, having the food does not equate to experiencing the culture. That is true. I agree with that entirely. But I hope you do see what I'm saying, as in food makes up a lot of a culture. Really, honestly, the resources that are available make up a lot of what a culture developed into. For example, the Japanese didn't have a lot of iron or steel during most of their history, and so a lot of their buildings, of course, had to revolve around an architectural style that didn't use a lot of nails or anything, and so there was an art form born there. But you know, if you take a Japanese architecture and you move it to another country like the United States, because I have seen some houses in the United States built in a Japanese style, it starts to, in my opinion, it starts to kind of devalue like the neatness and the uniqueness of the material shortages that the Japanese had in their history, and how special that architectural style is to that specific region. You know, that's the same with with Australian houses or southeastern U.S. houses. If you build a southeastern U.S. house in, say, Britain, it seems weird. You know, it's like, it's like kind of makes the South not really feel special anymore. You know, although a trailer home is. I'm just kidding about that. But anyways, I hope I do see what you're saying, but I feel like food does play an important aspect in it because, like an example with Japan, a lot of their food revolved around fishing because there's not a lot of arable land in Japan. And so all of these things that surround their homeland contribute to who they are and what they became, and even trying to kind of commercialize it and spread it around. It's just, it kind of makes it feel like it's not as special anymore to me. It's kind of like taking Disney World, you know, and making one in every state. It makes it feel like Disneyland isn't really unique anymore. It's just a normal theme park. So with that, I hope that kind of addresses what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to flesh it out a little bit better, but if you still disagree with me, you just do. But with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have another super chat from Bob Dole, the Bob Dole, who puts in $20 donation and says, Wiki indicates that USA has donated M982 Excalibur rounds to Ukraine. Could you educate the LSA on this amazing piece of USA tech?
Yes, I can. The M982 Excalibur round used to be around. Let's see here. I think our stream may have just cut off for a second and then reconnected. Let's see if it did. Just checking real quick.
Yep.
All right, so it looks like it's reconnected. Man, to give me a quick load. Yep. So with that.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Wait a minute.
I'm getting an uh-oh in the chat.
Oh, I think. Okay,
it's back.
I think we're okay. Yeah, I think we're okay. That was odd. I wonder what did that. Anyways, the M982 Excalibur. Now I'm scared. I'm like, oh no, what's happening? Let me check something real quick on my dashboard. I want to make sure I refresh it real
Bob
quick.
Dole did it.
Dang it, Bob Dole. Anyways, okay, so I was just checking my dashboard. Nothing happened there. Whew, that scared me. All right, so the M982 Excalibur round is a precision-guided artillery shell that can be fired from any 155mm gun made to the NATO standard, and it is GPS guided, so it can be guided straight onto a pinpoint, I believe either by GPS coordinates or a laser. Let's see, as a GPS and inertial guided munition, capable of being used in close support within 75 to 150 meters of friendly troops. That means only 250 feet in front of friendly troops. That round is so accurate that its blast radius, the friendly soldiers can be right on the edge of its blast radius, and it will have hit so dead on that they won't be wounded. That's actually really impressive. Let's see. The unit cost reduced to 68,000 per round. Wow, that's actually a pretty expensive round. That adds the laser guidance capability. So apparently these things can be guided by both GPS and laser guidance. And so they're incredibly impressive, at least in, I guess you could say, that definition. These things can be guided onto a pinpoint and fired from a normal artillery piece like an M777 or a Caesar. And so with that, I hope that kind of does answer the question the best I can. I can't really go into it a lot because the further I'll go into this, the wronger I will get, because while this was a round I really loved in school, I've forgotten a lot of that in between now and then. And it does have a lot of technical hoodoo voodoo going on behind the scenes with how this thing works. And so with that, I hope that answers the question in a way. And thank you so much for the support and also letting us talk about it for just a second. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And just a heads up, we do have about 30 more super chats to go until we get to our live chat questions. So moving on, we have a $20 super chat from SuperBonker9000 who says, to all new stream viewers, caution, the stream is addictive. Save yourself, come to the light. Slava Ukraine.
Slava Ukraini. And thank you so much for putting out the General Surgeon's warning, SuperBonker 9000. I think it's an enjoyable stream. I love doing this stream, and Matthew does too. And I'm glad that a lot of y'all love it as well. We try our best to make sure that it's interesting, and I'm glad that a lot of y'all find this to be mandatory watching every day of the week when we're running. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you so much once again, SuperBonker9000. I see you just threw down a blue ribbon beer in the chat, and I will have it. Cheers. Glug, glug, glug. And so with that, on to the next one.
And anyways, up next, we're going to address the poll real quick. Do you like sushi? 54% said, yes, I love it all. 16% said, yes, but no raw fish. And 30% said, no, sushi is bad. Get back.
What?
So
30%?
So I would have to fall within the 16% camp that said, yes, but no raw fish. I don't like the raw fish in the sushi.
Also, I would have to honestly say I fall within the 54%. I love it all. I've had every kind of sushi there is, both raw and not raw, like a California roll. I really enjoy them all. However, I really do wish, because also here's another thing. This is also true as well. Food that's made in another country that is supposed to be another country's food is never made exactly the same. And once again, that goes back into the whole thing about there's a certain amount of resources and a certain kind within a certain area. And so you can only get that kind of thing once. You know, like you can only get Japanese architecture in its original form once, and that would be in Japan. But moving on beyond that for a second, American sushi, as far as I've heard, is not up to par with Japanese sushi. And that's also another thing, is that whenever you take a culture overseas, you just can't replicate it like where it came from. You lose the authenticity of the thing. Like, for example, Mexican food in the United States. Everyone knows Taco Bell. But Taco Bell is not Mexican food. That's a known fact at this point amongst the public. However, that's about as close as most people, unless if you live in a state with a decent amount of Hispanic people in it, like in Alabama, where we're lucky enough to have some local restaurants that are killer delicious, and also some food trucks. Taco Bell's the best you'll get, and that's not Mexican food at all. And that was an attempt to export Mexican cuisine to the United States, and it didn't really do well. It's done incredibly well. It's the biggest Mexican food chain out there, but it's not good, if you know what I mean. And that's kind of another thing that goes into that category. I just think that I love sushi in any form, especially in the United States, but I still want to go to Japan eventually and try it out. But I still feel like sushi has kind of been cheapened a little bit with it coming to the United States. Kind of like a hamburger in the UK, because I know Matthew can agree with this. As an American growing up on hamburgers, going to the United Kingdom and eating a British hamburger, that thing didn't really taste a lot like an American hamburger.
I thought they were better.
I honestly thought they weren't as good. It seemed like they were too frou-frued up. Like a hamburger's a hamburger. A hamburger here in the United States is street food. And over there in the United Kingdom, it took on more of like a restaurant approach, which was interesting to me. But with that, I hope that kind of addresses the question, well, the comment there, and I thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope that addressed the question. Well, actually, that was a poll. I hope that addressed the poll fairly well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a super chat from Jay Bagwell, who puts in a $20 donation and says, in your opinion, why has Odessa been spared occupation by the Russians, not as strategic as others? ? Thanks to you both for the news and the laughs.
And also, thank you so much for those kind words. And let me answer why Odessa was never taken. The Russians had planned to launch a naval invasion of Odessa once the Russians had broken through Mykolaiv and crossed the Ba River, which is right here. Once the Russians had crossed the Ba River, natural obstacle-wise, there was really nothing stopping them from racing to Odessa, and then a naval invasion force could be launched somewhere around the closer beachheads to create an area that the Russian forces could move into and base from without any large amounts of Ukrainian resistance at that point, to then take Odessa. Odessa is strategically important, incredibly strategically important, as it is the largest open seaport that the Ukrainians have. Kherson was the largest river port on the Dnieper River and also at the mouth of the river, and so its capture closed off everything north upstream from reaching the sea. However, Odessa and Mykolaiv are kind of the same in that they're strategic seaports, and their capture would have been crucially important to the Russians and their logistical chains moving forward, and could have technically created a land bridge in between the Russian-occupied areas and Transnistria, which could have also been used to launch Russian forces further into Ukraine and towards Ivano-Frankivsk and Chernivtsi. So with that, I hope that does answer the question. It's not that it wasn't strategically important, it's just that they were never able to capture the prerequisites needed to make the capture of Odessa possible. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question, and thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $20 super chat from Captain Chris 1220, who says, here we go again, to show you the power of this flex tape, I just saw this T-72 3.5. That was way too hysterical, actually.
Well, not really. If you watch that guy, he's really enthusiastic. I gotta give it to him. He does sell that stuff like no tomorrow. But with that, I hope that one did you this time. If you would like me to read that as well, just let Matthew know. And if he does, Matthew, just make sure to post it in the chat for me so that way I can read it, and then I'll do it too. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that appeased you. If you didn't, just let us know. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $16.50 super chat from Mike D, who says, if Ukraine takes its territory to the Russian border, gets bombarded from inside Russia, will Ukraine fire back with Western artillery inside Russia? Do you see 20-mile no man's land separating the two?
I could see that. However, I don't think the Ukrainians will start massive artillery battles into Russia, because then that lengthens the front line, which diverts the amount of resources they can use in counterattacks on their own land. And by and large, while that would benefit them in the short term, in the long term, it would severely hinder their efforts. So in that regard, I could see that, but at the same time, I don't think it would be to Ukraine's advantage. And so with that, I hope that answers the question in a shorter way. And thank you so much once again for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $15 super chat from Shannon Jane, who says, Enforcer, have you seen Putin singing on Blueberry Hill on YouTube? It has a Nightmare Kubrick vibe.
Could you reread that one real quick?
Enforcer, have you seen Putin singing on Blueberry Hill on YouTube?
I have not, actually. Have you, Matthew?
I haven't. I'm assuming it's like one of those videos that uses AI to put his face on somebody, because I'm sure he's not singing that for real.
I'm pretty sure too, but I haven't seen it, but I will check it out after stream. Also, I just saw someone say in our live chat, Adam Smith said, did you guys know one of your longtime members has the #1 show on Netflix, most watched series in 191 countries? I didn't know that.
Who's that?
Let's pull that up. #1 show on Netflix. Let's see. #1 show. What is the top #1 show on Netflix? It looks like there's been a couple. Apparently Echoes, The Sandman, Never Have I Ever, and Stranger Things 4 have been on the top. That doesn't narrow it down at all. I don't know. I mean, if you could clarify who that is. Oh, me, Devil in Ohio. What? What?
Is that you, Adam Smith?
Adam Smith? Adam Smith Netflix? Adam Smith at Netflix? Adam Smith is also an economist, a pretty famous one at that. Netflix. A real Adam Smith.
Real Adam Smith.
Images. Adam Smith? The real Adam Smith. Well, if it is you, you would have to give me a little bit more detail. If you are #1 on Netflix, congratulations to that. It takes a lot to climb to the #1 spot on any kind of programming whatsoever. And so it's really cool to know that if you are #1 on Netflix, you're in here watching the show, and I'm highly honored by that. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a super chat from Billy, Joe, Carl, Bob, Danny, and Frank. A lot of people putting in a super chat here. But anyways, a very long super chat, actually, who puts in a $15 donation and says, good evening, sirs. Today is my birthday. Woohoo. And happy birthday to you, Billy, Joe, Carl, Bob, Danny, and Frank. He says, and although perhaps a bit macabre, I couldn't have wished for a better birthday present than the news that orcs from the north sent by Pale White Dwarf, aka Kremlin Gremlin, are being pounded all around Kherson. And now for the slightly macabre part, also the fact that Ruskies celebrated their 50,000th anniversary, soldier napping permanently.
Matthew, it's macabre.
Macabre? Who's that?
It's macabre. Let me make sure I got this right. How to pronounce macabre?
Macabre.
What? Wait, hang on.
Macabre.
American.
What is this anyway?
Macabre.
Macabre. Let me pull up a definition for you. I got to make sure it's textbook. But here in America, apparently in British, in British English, which is I guess would be English, it's macabre. But in America, it's macabre. The definition of macabre. Definition of macabre is disturbing and horrifying because of involvement with or depiction of death and injury. So that's what macabre is.
Oh, I've never heard of that before in my life.
Well, I've heard of it a couple of times, and I remember that it had a weird spelling that did not sound like how it was pronounced. But I can see that the chat went off, and that's why I was like, "Oh no!" But it's fine. I've screwed up like what 5,000 words at this point. It's not
Everybody knows what this means.
apparently.
I can't believe it.
But,
It sounds like something voodoo related or something. It sounds kind of strange.
but also moving on from that and to address the super chat made by the township of Billy, I would like to thank you so much for supporting this channel on your birthday. And also, happy birthday, by the way. I hope you've been having a fun one. I hope the stream's been adding a little bit to it. And also, I would have to say, I guess this is a pretty good birthday present for you. And so, of course, I hope you've been enjoying it. And happy birthday once again to all, well, one of you or all of you, considering that that account has like 7 names on it. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again. And I guess it is a little bit macabre. And with that, on to the next one.
I see people saying it's a common word. I have never heard anybody in my entire life use that word.
Also,
ever.
I love how Maurice Chevalier the Fourth says it's French and you guys are nowhere close to pronouncing it right. Although I literally just pulled it up on Google to have it pronounce it, and it says macabre, and then this guy is going to tell me, oh, it's wrong. Like, what's Google wrong too? Anyways, with that, we're on to the next one.
And real quick, we also got one more super chat from Billy, Joe, Carl, Bob, Frank, Danny, and Frank, who says all the best from Stockholm, Sweden. Nora Hammer by Hamnen. Also, check it out if you like. Also, you need to say my username really fast. Billy, Joe, Carl, Bob, Danny, Frank.
Billy, Joe, Carl, Bob, Danny, Frank. Yep, there we go. Did it. All right, let's pull that town up. Paste. Oh my god, wow, that's a real town. Wait a minute. Oh,
wait, is that a place?
Man. We'll check it out. We'll check it out. It's a big apartment complex place. It won't hurt, but let's check it out.
Oh, no. You're doxing yourself.
It looks like a nice place, though. They even got a little sailing boat here. Man. Well, I thank you so much for the support once again, Billy Joe, Carl, Bob, Danny, Frank. And also, nice place. I like it. So with that, we're not going to look at this any longer. And also, just in case if you do not know, make sure to be very careful. Now, it's fine to list off where you live, like Stockholm. Like I always say, I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and I do. But make sure not to give out any specific locations, because one thing's for certain, there are scary people out there. And while our Leaf Spring Army is full of incredibly kind people, there could be someone who's a little malicious that's just hanging out in the stream and waiting for something. So always make sure to be careful. Of course, nothing dangerous there. It was a big complex, so it's not like it caused any harm. But still, really neat to see. And apparently it's not this specific spot. It's apparently like this entire suburb or portion of the city. But still, really cool to see. And also, notice this, Matthew. It's an island.
It is.
That's really cool. I didn't know that. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope you enjoyed us looking at your home city of Stockholm, Sweden. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $50 super chat from Adam Smith. And thank you very much, Adam, for that generosity. He says, thank you for all you do for Ukraine and for us, the LSA.
Well, I got to thank you, Adam Smith, once again for being an incredible economist and also #1 on Netflix. You're holding a lot of titles right now, man. You're like Frederick Barbarossa the Fourth. But anyways, moving on from that, I do thank you so much for the kind words and support, and also Slava Ukraini and Slava Leifspring Army. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the kind words and the massive support. It helps our channel a whole lot, and it helps us to keep on running. Speaking of which, some of y'all may notice that every once in a while, I actually do a little bit of a, I guess you could say, a little bit of improv in a Zelensky voice. I actually did this on a voice call on Discord once, and everyone in there wanted me to read off President Zelensky's speech, impersonating him on a stream eventually. It hurt my voice to do it, but if y'all want it, and we should run a poll on that, Matthew. If y'all want it, we'll do it. So we'll let Matthew set up that poll here real quick. And then once we do that, we'll then be moving on into our next question.
All right, and that poll will be up in just a moment. And the next super chat is from Fabiano Passon, who puts in a $10 donation and says just around $10 in US dollars. Thank you very much for that help, by the way. He says nothing to ask, just singing Bayraktar.
Bayraktar. And also, thank you so much for the support, the kind words, and also letting me sing terribly the Bayraktar song. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And moving right along, now that poll has been posted, we have a $10 super chat from T. Clark. We also have a $10 super chat from Trang, and I cannot say your last name. I'm not even sure how to even begin to pronounce it. But thank you very much to both of you for your support. They don't leave comments, but we appreciate the support as always. And thank you both for being longtime viewers. And moving on to our next one, we have a $10 super chat from Lee Spring Army, who says, how do you guys caffeinate pre-stream? I'm a big cold brew fan. And Lee Spring Army, I'll say for me, before the enforcer answers his part, I used to drink a cold brew before the stream called Busy. It worked pretty good, but it left you jittering because it was so much caffeine in it. So I moved over to these other like caffeine mints or whatever, made by a company called Neurogum, and they actually work pretty good, and I don't have any jitters from them. And I just gave them totally free advertising, so I hope they're happy about that.
Now, to answer the question for me, I drink a raucous concoction. That's the best way I can explain it. Called Busy. Busy gets the job done. It gets me busy. However, it tastes like just awful stuff. It tastes like raw gasoline. But it does have a lot of caffeine in it. So in that regard, it does get the job done. So that's how I caffeinate. But Matthew seems to be taking a more intellectual route to the thing, and he's now eating mints. So with that, I hope that answers the question. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And moving on to the next one, we have a $10 super chat from Rurik MyCat, who says the first Crimean War with England was 1853 through 1856. This was when the charge of the Light Brigade happened. 600 charged against Russian cannons and all died.
And that is true. The Crimean War was actually a bit of an exercise in everyone's incompetence. Both the Russians, the British, the French, and the Ottomans. Everyone involved in that war was incompetent beyond belief. But there was also something else that came out of that war that people will know to this day. In fact, the Russians wear it. The little green men. Little green men right here. Russo-Ukrainian War. What's this thing called that's on their face, Matthew?
Is it a balaclava?
You are absolutely correct. You know where those came from.
It came from the region of Bala in Klava.
Close. You're actually really close. It came from the British, surprisingly enough, in the Crimean War. Soldiers that were sent to Crimea were freezing to death because the British commanders there were incompetent and had not prepared the British army for winter weather or winter fighting. And so back home, large initiatives were undertaken to provide the men with proper warm clothing. And one of the things that women started to knit were these head socks. And these head socks would have a little opening in them for the eyes, and then they were sent over. These things were incredibly popular among the troops. They wore them all over the place. They loved them. And so from then on, the balaclava became incredibly popular. I believe it was actually named after a battle there, the Battle of Balaclava. Battle of Balaclava. I think this was it. But let me make sure. Balaclava.
Wait, is that the region of Bala? In Klava?
No, that's near Sevastopol, actually. But let me.
Somebody said balaclava, not to be confused with baklava.
Oh yeah,
man, baklava is good.
Baklava is delish. Oh, like no lie at all. That's some really good stuff. But let me see here real quick. History, 19th century Uthlan cap. Really cool ones, by the way. I like the Uthlan caps. You can see them right there. Anyways, name comes from the Battle of Balaclava. I was correct, referring to the town near Sevastopol in the Crimea, where British troops there wore knitted headgear to keep warm. So I was correct. That's where the balaclava came from, and you can see The balaclava.
He's
became-
about to rob a store, that fella down there in the green room. Look at him. That bad boy is about to rob a grocery store.
and so the British, somewhat in a way, would propagate low-end crimes here in the United States, where a convenience store would be robbed at 12 o'clock at night. So with that, I hope that kind of answers the question a little bit about the balaclava, and also gives a little bit of history about it, because this is a really interesting one. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from BC Skyman, who says, everyone should watch 1944. I was watching that movie the night the war started. And my question is that the movie that was shot in one take?
1944 was a...
Or is that a different one?
Apparently,
That's a different one.
it's a 2015 film, or that's the date. That's the year 1944. We're looking for the movie. So apparently,
Hey, it's Mr. Lunchtime.
in 1944 Estonia, Mr. Lunchtime. Oh yeah, this guy. A fratricide war
Just kidding.
ensues when Estonians of the retreating German forces fight against Estonians conscripted into the advancing Soviet Red Army. Oh man, that actually sounds deep, and I'd actually be interested to see that. So with that, that's the end of that. I will look into that. That's actually a really interesting suggestion there, and I will see about watching that movie. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Cliff H, who says, what has the IAEA mission reported so far regarding the power plant?
I haven't read the IAEA report today because it's coming out in the mainstream news, and I'm waiting for a more, I guess you could say, non-biased interpretation of it to come out. But we could actually pull up the IAEA's website and get a little snippet of it real quick. So let's see. Topics. Support and assistance mission to Zaporizhia. Let's read what they wrote down in this statement. Travel to assess the plant. The agency has now set up a continuous presence of the IAEA at the plant. We can also see... Yeah, and it looks like... Oh, wow. I don't know if this is a government agency or not. I don't know if we can play the video. I would feel like we could, considering it's...
I would be careful.
Yeah, I'll be really careful with that, but I wish we could just get a report. This doesn't really tell us much. But I'll watch the video, and I'll circle back with all of y'all and tell y'all what I was able to find out about it. But this right here, this one picture, this hit right in front of one of the storage buildings of reactor number 2, just about 50 yards away. That's deadly close. But with that, I hope that does kind of address the comment in a way. And thank you so much for the support. And we are on to the next one.
And I heard that the radioactive waste was actually exposed to the elements. That's what I heard earlier because of that hole that was in the roof.
Interesting. And so with that, I hope that also adds a
All
little
right.
bit. I hope that adds a little bit of information to it. You can't really add on to it. It's just a simple fact. Sorry about that. But with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Greg Carmen, who says, with Russians deploying more air assets, is there any uptick in Ukraine AA, ALA, Stinger, etc.?
I haven't seen any upticks yet, at least on the casualty reports or video evidence. We did see that Su-25 get shot down in Donetsk today, but we haven't seen any other aircraft that we can confirm being shot down so far. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question, and I thank you so much for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And real quick to go over the poll, should Enforcer do a Zelensky impersonation? It looks like 52% said no and 48% said yes. And many people said no because they feel like that is disrespecting the boss. So that is their reasoning behind that, and I would have to tend to agree, actually.
Oh man. Well, with that, we're on to the next one.
All right, and moving on to our next super chat, we have a $10 super chat from Technical Fool, who says the beard is part of his transition to Ukrainian Giga Chad.
Giga Chad. And I thank you so much for the support. And also, I thank you for the reference to internet memology, which is Giga Chad. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from BC Skyman, who says, my Ukrainian friend that arrived said that they actually tie fishing lines to the drones, and when the Russians try to steal them, they just crank them back. That is hilarious.
What? We lost the drone. Quick, pull it back. It's just, what if they actually have a fishing rod out there? Oh, quick, start reeling it back. That's actually a really cool idea, an interesting one. And if that's true, if what you're telling me is true, that is also, that's really smart, but also hilariously funny at the same time. Like the Russians, like did he say the Russians are doing that or the Ukrainians?
He said the Ukrainians, let's see, Ukrainian friend that arrived said they actually tie fishing lines to the drones, and when Russians try to steal them, they crank them back.
Oh my lord, that's gonna be the funniest thing. The Russians like get one and they're like, ah, got it, and then they just see it start slowly getting snagged through the air. What's happening? And they just see the thing get pulled out of view. Oh man, that would be that's probably one of the most annoying things that the Russians have to deal with. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support, BC Skyman, and also sharing that funny little story with us. I didn't know they did that until right now. And so with that, we're on to the next one, and thank you once again for a crazy story.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from William Allen, who says, neither the French nor Brits prepared themselves for an offensive war, with both having to defend homeland and colonies. The closest thing to offensive an army was the British exped forces.
That's true. Well, that's fairly true. But the French army, on the other hand, was the largest and most powerful in the world, even with the Germans doing what they were doing in 1939. And it's something to think that the French wouldn't take the offensive, considering that, it would only make sense to say it in the simplest of terms. But that is true. The British were not prepared at all, and a lot of people misconceive British history, especially in American history, to mean that the British had the strongest military in the world, the strongest army, the strongest navy, and that would be entirely wrong. The British had the strongest navy in the world, always almost, until recent history, in the past few decades. Their navy far exceeded any other power. They were the US of their time, and naval power translated into raw power, and so in that term and during that era, Britain was the United States. However, they never really had an impressively strong army. It's a venerable army. It's an honorable army. They've done impressive things. Not a lot of militaries have the running track record that the French and the British do. However, the British still, even with that in mind, they never really had the largest and most impressive military most times. They always relied on the Navy. So with that, I hope that does address the question in a way. But you are correct with the British. The British Expeditionary Force wasn't really geared for war. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and I hope I answered that one fairly well. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $15 super chat from Shannon Jane, who says, very historic churches, Fredericton, Canada, Christ Church Cathedral, and St. Anne's Chapel. Also, Putin is really singing on Blueberry Hill at a party for real.
Well, I'll have to check that out after stream. I don't know if it'd be copyrighted because the karaoke stuff in the background may be copyrighted. But let's check out these churches real quick. Fredericton, Canada. Well, this is a big one. Let's see if we can find it real quick. Oh, man. Dang it. I don't think we will be able to. Oh, come on. Oh, wait a minute. What if I throw that back in again and I put in church? Fredericton Church.
And also, Enforcer, just a heads up, we do have about 20 more super chats to go.
Oh. Unfortunately, I won't be able to take a look at all of them, but I have heard the Christchurch Cathedral, and we will take a look at that one real quick. Just that one. So, paste. Click. Ah! Okay, unfortunately we won't be able to take a look at it, but I will check out that video of Putin singing Blueberry Hill. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again, but sadly due to time constraints, we can't really look at it all too well.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Smart Lucker, who says, Enforcer Matt, glad to hear you're back from Ukraine, and thank you, Smart Lucker. It was a long flight. He says, must have been a blast watching those Su-25s fly over your head, and clearly needed a yeehaw. Stay safe and keep on keeping on, you two from CA, LSA. And thank you very much for the support, Smart Lucker. And I'm going to turn it over to the Enforcer.
And I gotta thank you so much for your support, and also Slava Ukraini and LSA. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $9 super chat from Michael Cabrera and a $5 super chat from I'm Your Huckleberry. They don't leave comments, but guys, thank you very much for your support as always and your continued viewership over these many months. And moving right along, we have a $5 super chat from Santiago Flores, who says, donating a live chat question, enjoy. And just like we did with Zyper Sniper 1, we're going to go pick out a live chat question to answer real quick in honor of Santiago Flores. So here we are. The question will be going to Nick Poole, who says, do you believe Russia is keeping the Nord Stream pipeline off to affect Europe? It was supposed to come back on at the end of August, but has not come back on yet.
That is true. They actually shut it off deliberately, and as far as we've heard from Gazprom, which is the company that controls the Nord Stream line, they said they're not turning it back on. And so it appears that they're doing that to directly affect Europe. And so with that, I hope that answers the question, and I may be making a video on that in the future. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Suzanne B, who says, I love the Monday news, but you all need a day or two of rest sometimes. To keep up with your life, you will burn out at some point. And Suzanne, all I have to say is we have to stay on the grind all the time.
On that grind all the time. And thank you very much for caring and having concern for us, Susan, because I do appreciate it. But I promise you, I'm not trying to burn myself out. I'm just a workaholic. And so with that, I hope that answers the question, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from G Seals, who says, is the United States increasing production of the 155mm artillery shells?
I think they may, but we don't get a lot of play-by-play reports from the Department of Defense or the defense industry like that. So what I would assume they would be, but at the same time, I'm not exactly sure. So with that, I'm actually going to have to declare ignorance on that one because it could go either way. So with that, I hope that kind of answers the question, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Jeff Shriver, who says, have you seen Ukraine's troll of the Russian military recruitment video that just came out? Outstanding. Keep up the good work.
Sadly, I haven't, but I will make sure to try and check into that one because it does sound pretty funny. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does kind of answer the question. Sadly, of course, it's a letdown, though. And with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Alan Sanderson, who says, do you know how many times can various Ukrainian aircraft fire chaff and flares? They always seem to be popping them.
Can you reread that real quick?
He wants to know how many times can the various Ukrainian aircraft fire chaff and flares?
Unfortunately, it would depend on each aircraft, but usually, I think that an Su-25 would have around 200 charges of flares at least, usually fired off 2 at a time and maybe even 4 at a time. So it would just kind of depend on the amount of charges that specific variant of aircraft has and how many are fired off at a single flick. Flick of a switch. So with that, I hope that kind of answers the question in a way, but it has a lot of variables in it. And so with that, we are on to the next one. I hope we kind of answered that question.
And up next, Joe Little throws in a $20 super chat and says, being tired is an emotion. It's not physical. Well, Joe, I have to say, after about 12, 15 or so, I start getting real emotional, I guess you could say. But anyways, thank you very much for the support. And I'm going to turn it over to the Enforcer.
I would have to say that being tired is certainly physical. Because once you get tired enough, you just get weak. It is also emotional as well. It is really both of them, honestly. But I do get where you're coming from. But tired's tired. So with that, I thank you so much for the support. I hope that does answer the comment. And we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Billy, Joe, Carl, Bob, Danny, and Frank, who says, thank you so much for the birthday wish. Enforcers, by the way, do you not recognize where my alias comes from? Hi. Thought you would instantly recognize it, and I actually don't. Is it hee haw? That would be my best guess.
It may be hee haw, but I do thank you for the support. I hate that we didn't pick up on the reference, and also I'm more than happy to wish you a happy birthday. It's fun to always hear that people are having birthdays, and what's really cool to me is that y'all spent y'all's time on y'all's birthday on stream, which means a lot to me, and I'm glad that I was able to contribute to your birthday in some way, shape, or form, and make it a little bit better. Hopefully, I'm not ruining your night or anything. And so with that, I thank you so much for the support. But sadly, I didn't pick up on the reference. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from VPCZX, who says, I got the COVID today, and I got up only to watch this show. And man, is that a dedicated viewer right there. And also, I want to say, I hope that you get over COVID quick, or actually get over the COVID very quickly. I haven't had it, I don't think, yet. So hopefully, it's nothing serious. But thank you very much for the support, and that's crazy. You got up only to watch our show.
And also, that is really cool to hear. And I hope you get over COVID okay. I remember that COVID used to be somewhat serious. I actually had a couple of friends that got it, and they said it beats you down. Like it was like a Hulk Hogan coming in. No, not Hulk Hogan, man. Let me think. Brother. I'm trying to think about someone else. The Rock. Nah, Andre the Giant. It'd be like Andre Giant coming into the room with a steel chair and smacking you over the head with it a couple of times and in the stomach. But I've heard that it's gotten a lot more mild, but still, it's not fun to get any kind of sickness, so I do hope you get over it here soon. And with that, I thank you so much for the support, and I'm glad that you did get up and watch this stream today. I'm glad that you enjoy this channel enough that we're able to help you pass the time while you're trying to get over the sickness. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And I guess in this case, you could say that it's best to not be down with the sickness. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Billy, Joe, Carl, Bob, Danny, and Frank again, who says, since you're from the South, answer George Carlin and his A List of People Who Ought to Be Killed bit.
Honestly, I didn't really watch a lot of George Carlin. I remember, the only time I really remember George Carlin vividly is when George Carlin narrated the Thomas the Tank Engine episodes that I used to watch as a kid. That's really the only time I remember George Carlin from anything, and it was really a shock to me when I was about a couple of years ago browsing around the internet, and I found the Thomas the Tank Engine narrator guy cussing his head off on a stage. Like, that was like the hugest whiplash for me. It was really weird. But anyways, with that, I hope that answers the question. And I'm sorry we didn't pick up on that. I just never really watched a lot of George Carlin. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have another $50 super chat from Tangen, who says, pizza, donuts on me. Thank you for an awesome job.
And I thank you for the support, Tangen. And I'm glad that we are able to get a couple of more pizza and a couple of more donut on you. And thank you so much for the support. It does mean a lot. And thank you for the kind words as well. Also, I want to know, Matthew, what in the world was that?
That was my attempt to go from a deep baritone to a high, let's see, what's the word for that? A high something?
Treble?
C sharp. Let's just go with that. C sharp.
Well, I guess. And with that, we are on to the next one because Matthew and the next one's on me. But with that, on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Compound David, who says LSA Army Kherson watermelon mugs, hat, stickers, shirts, farm camouflage gear. And I guess he's putting in a merch recommendation.
We'll keep that under advisement. But remember, one of our golden rules is that we don't make any merchandise with Ukrainian symbols or anything like that on them, because we don't want to get into that category of merchandising, because then it kind of feels like we're just trying to profit off of Ukraine's success. And and considering that merchandise sales go to support this channel, I feel like it would be kind of but with that, we will put that under advisement, and we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Marcel Bruin, who says Chuck Norris is so strong, even Russian rockets fly back in fear.
Interesting. I will have to get some video or picture evidence on that one, but I will take your word for it for now. And so with that, thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address the comment. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And moving right along to our next super chat, we have one from Santiago Flores once again, who puts in another $5 donation and says, we have not heard of any Russian female casualties.
I don't think we have, but I'm sure that there's probably one in there because 50,200 soldiers killed. There's got to be at least a single woman in there. Although, to me, it really doesn't matter. A soldier's a soldier. But with that, I hope that does answer the comment. And I will try and see if we can get some broken down statistics on that and see if that is true. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $10 super chat from Sick Lid, who says, "Sweet home Alabama, where the skies are blue, and the skies really extra blue in Alabama, question mark."
The skies are really blue in Alabama, at least to me. Especially when you get to the colder winter months, it seems like the sky gets darker then. Well, duh. I mean, like we have less.
Well, it is nighttime after all.
Yeah. I mean, like duh. I mean, like we have less daylight in the day in the winter. But yeah, it does seem like it is extra blue. At least to me, though. I could be wrong. And so with that, I hope that does answer the question after I made a fool of myself. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Herp Derp NV, who says, "A look at Google Street View shows that most of Russia looks to be in worse shape economically than even Compton, California. LOL." He's dissing on Compton, California. My God.
Man, this guy's got a vendetta against Compton, and I would not disagree at all. I have taken a look at random places in Russia, like this town here. We'll take a look at it. Oh, look, it's got Street View. Nuts. Hello everyone, I'm Bolton Bankrupt, and we're here in the town of Sugut, and today we're looking for a real chav. But yes, the Russians live in squalor. It's pretty bad. And so with that, I hope that does address the comment, and also taking shots at Compton, I see. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from MJ, who says, "I forgot my question. Can you please just give me a random answer?"
Well, I think...
And 55.
Say what?
They said a random answer, so I said 55.
Oh, I was about to say, honestly, I'm going to have to quote ignorance on that. I don't know whether that is or isn't the case, but I do thank you so much for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $5 super chat from Dogs of Warsaw, who does not leave a comment, but thank you very much for your support. And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Marcel Bruin, once again, who says, "Slava Ukraine, Slava NATO, greetings from Amsterdam."
Amsterdam, the city of canals. Netherlands is also the city of major waterworks. I won't explain that too much. But have you noticed this, Matthew? This is the coolest thing about Amsterdam. Whole city is surrounded by rings of canals.
The whole city?
The whole city. Look. Here's a canal here. Here's another canal. Here's another canal. Here's another one. The whole city is literally a massive network of rings of canals. And at one point, much like Venice, those were the major roadways of the town. You traveled by the canals instead of the roads.
Now this one isn't sinking like Venice, is it?
No, I know. I don't think Amsterdam's sinking because they've made some massive projects. I could sit here and tell you all night long, which I won't because we're running out of time, about the massive dikes that they've built out in the Dutch Sea and all that. I mean, it is really fascinating how much the Dutch work with water and how they kind of control it, really. But Amsterdam's also a really nice looking place. If you drop down here, you can see here. Nice old looking Dutch. Well, this is more like an electrical substation. We'll move somewhere else. Maybe right here. This will be better. See, nice little Dutch town. So, but with that, I hope that does take a look at your town of Amsterdam. And also, really cool to hear that we have a Lee Spring Army member in the Dutch city of Amsterdam, which, if y'all didn't know, is the home of capitalism. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from VPCZX, who says, "Thank you to those who said it." Oh, wait, excuse me. He said, "Thank you to those who said get better, and you're welcome."
And also, you're totally welcome. I'm glad that a lot of people in the Lee Spring Army are incredibly kind-hearted, and I saw a lot of them give out get well betters too, and I'm glad that a lot of people are wishing you well, and I hope that gives you the strength to power on through and show COVID who's boss. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Dupper Bob, who does not leave a comment. And Thank you very much, Dupper Bob, for your support of the channel and being here almost every single night, it seems like. So it's good to see you once again. And moving on to our next super chat, we have a $2 donation from Jan Van Voorviz, who says English uses many foreign words.
And it does actually. Beef is one of those foreign words. Beef is actually French. There's a whole bunch. I mean, like, you could go over English forever. It's had a lot of influence from foreign languages, mostly Germanic and Romantic in origin, but there's still some Celtic influences in there, and also some Norse as well. It really is just a whole hodgepodge of Europe, and somehow we've developed into the language we have today, which when you look at the evolution of English over the past 1,000 years, it's kind of bizarre to think that this is the specific way it would form. And so with that, we are on to the next one, but I would like to take a quick moment, Matthew, to address something I just saw in the chat. SM just said that their father just died right now, and I'd like to say I'm terribly sorry about that.
My goodness.
I hate that happened. Of course, it's an unfortunate thing that occurs in life, but I'm sorry about that, and that's a terrible thing, honestly. I hope that you can get through it pretty well. It's always a tough thing, but I once again want to give you my condolences. And I'm terribly sorry that happened to you of this night on any, unfortunately. You know, it's honestly just a sad thing. But with that, we're now going to move on to the next one. And once again, I'm sorry for your loss.
And yes, we are very sorry for your loss. And we hope that you can get through these trying times. And it is very sad to hear that. But anyways, moving on to our next super chat, we have a $2 donation from Ricardo Ospina, who says the French did attack during the phony war period.
I think they did, but it wasn't a serious attack. It was more so of a lighter attack, something more of like a probe. But, you know, considering that the Germans pulled the same tactic twice, which was to push through Belgium and around the more heavily defended areas of Alsace-Lorraine, or, you know, in the First World War they didn't have Alsace-Lorraine, you would think that the French would have learned something from that as well and pushed through maybe Luxembourg or Belgium. You know, I know that the diplomacy of it wouldn't have really allowed for it, but, you know, desperate times call for desperate measures, and you would think that someone would have done something like that at the time. But with that, I hope that does answer the question in a way, well, address the comment in a way, and that is true. They did conduct some limited attacks, but I don't think it was anything serious enough. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and I hope that does address the comment.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Kaltenberg, who says focus.
And also, we will focus, Kaltenberg, and I thank you so much for the support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a $2 super chat from Ricardo Ospina, once again, who says Russian ejector seats can save an upside-down pilot.
Maybe, but can they save him from the fall? I've seen a couple of times it's failed, so I'll have to wait and see on that one if it did or didn't. But with that, I thank you for the support. I hope that addresses the comment, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And we'll have 3 more super chats left. So the next one goes to Billy, Joe, Carl, Bob, Danny, and Frank, who puts in a $2 donation and says, no, of course not. I'm having a blast. All the best.
Well, I'm glad you are having a blast, and I thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope you've been enjoying it in here. I also just saw you throw in real quick. You said, did you miss the last super chat? No, we didn't. We actually just adjusted right then. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and thank you once again.
And up next, we have 2 $1 super chats from Dan Gagny, who says, did Ukraine hit a refinery on Russian soil today? Would give more, but disability. Sorry, guys.
Well, I thank you for the support, and I'm going to be honest with you. Any support you give is fine enough. Even if you didn't give me your support, the kind words mean a lot to me as well, and so it's totally fine. I'm not going to sit there and beat you over the head like, why didn't you give me more? I'm just happy that people enjoy this and help us to keep going however they can, even if it's just hitting the like button or just saying, hey man, I love it, keep it up. It all means a lot to me, and so I thank you for the support. I wish I could tell you how much just saying kind words meant to me, but with that, could you reread it again real quick, Matthew?
He said, did Ukraine hit a refinery on Russian soil today?
I did not hear about that, and so I will be trying to look into that the best I can and see if that is true. Also, I just saw, considering that this is a bit of an unfortunate thing, that SM said that their father had died from throat cancer and it was expected. And while things like that can be expected, it's always a sad, unfortunate thing when it happens. And I want you to know that the entire Lee Spring Army is here for you. Hey, everyone's backing up. Everyone supports you, and so I hope that if anything, that helps you to get through it and hopefully make it out the other side a-okay. Once again, I'm terribly sorry that happened to you right now. Of all times, if any time, unfortunately, it just does happen. But once again, I want you to know that I'm terribly sorry about that. Matthew is as well, and I'm sure that a lot of people in the Lee Spring Army are backing up and wishing you the best and sending prayers and condolences your way. And so with that, we are now on to the next one, and I just wanted to address that one more time for you, SM.
And yes, indeed. And moving on, I can't believe I forgot all about it, but we did have our decoders of the stream figure out the Morse code, and it got somehow stuck at the top of my spreadsheet. I don't know why, but we're going to go over it now. WF2U and Mark Hodges figured it out and said, Enforcer, message 1, warehouse or agricultural building in Tamarin, Kherson Oblast, and number 2, the Ukrainians are taking the Russians out of town, literally.
Ding, 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 ding. You got it correct. And thank you so much once again for deciphering those Morse codes and getting the messages in them. We'll be seeing if that supposed ammunition depot is an ammunition depot. And I thank y'all so much for being here and always decoding those Morse code messages. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And congratulations to all of y'all once again.
And it looks like we're running pretty late, folks. So sadly, we won't be able to answer a ton of live chat questions, but I'm going to pick the top ones that I see out of the list. And the first one is from TR, who says, Enforcer, did you hear the U.S. intelligence say that they have information that Russia is going to be making major purchases of artillery and rockets from North Korea and is on the way?
I have not heard about that, but I will be trying to get some news on that, considering that's about the second time or third time we've heard that tonight. And so with that, we are on to the next one. I think we're actually going to answer about 4 more until the stream ends, because it is getting really late.
And up next, we have a question from East Malibu, who says, do you think Ukraine will attack the Russians with night vision to eliminate the soldiers and take the weapons?
I think they could. It's possible. The Ukrainians are better equipped than the Russians, so that is something they could possibly do. But once again, that's getting into a nitty-gritty, which is really hard to actually get into and be accurate with, because so many things could be different and happen. And so with that, I hope that answers the question in a way. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And real quick, we do have one more super chat, this time from Richie MC, who puts in a $10 donation and says, from Dan Gagny and all the ones that wish to send their monetary support, kind words, LSA strong.
And thank you so much for the support, Richie MC. And I thank you so much for the kind words. You just put in kind words. That means a lot. And also, LSA and Slava Ukraini. And so with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you so much once again, Richie.
And up next, we have a question from Robert Harrington, who says, do you know, does Ukraine have medevac helicopters for wounded troops, or is it ground transport only?
I think it's largely ground transport. We have rarely ever, if not ever, seen any kind of medevac helicopters, and so I think it's all ground based, but I could be wrong. It could just be that medevac helicopters are there, but they're incredibly rare. And so with that, we are on to the 2 last live chat questions of tonight. And so with that, we're on to the second to last one.
And up next, we have a question from What Else Happened, who says, do we have a Dunkirk type situation in the Kherson region?
We may. I think that may be something I think that may be a possibility, because there's no way for the Russians to really cross anymore, and so they're just going to get stuck in Kherson, and the Russians are going to have to try and find a way to either have the Russians cross over or just tell them to surrender or fight till the end, which they most likely won't do. And so with that, I hope that answers the question, and we are now on to the final one of the night.
And the final one of the night goes to C. Farnwide, who puts in a $5 donation and says, in memory of SM's father.
And I thank you for the support. It does help us out a lot, and I do have to say that's an unfortunate thing that's happened on our stream tonight, and I do wish SM the best. If it's always an unfortunate thing I've, of course, going through my short life of only 20 years, I have seen many people die that I've known, and it's always an unfortunate thing when it happens, and it always takes a little bit to get over. But like the saying goes, don't ever cry because it's over. Smile because you knew them. And these people could have been incredible people. I've known a lot of incredible, nice people that are no longer here anymore, and I look back at them fondly and think it was a wonderful thing that I was able to know them for the time I did. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for the support. And on that little bit of a low, kind of sad note, we're going to be ending tonight's stream. I thank you all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure to answer everyone's questions and of course report the news as usual. And if you're new to this channel and have somehow stuck it through to the entirety of the end of this stream, then you are a trooper and you must enjoy this channel a lot. Please make sure to subscribe. We do upload these streams every single day of the week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, except for Mondays, but we are thinking about doing something on Monday like a premiere from now on. And with that, I thank you all so much once again for watching, and I will see y'all at 10 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow to report the day 197 news of the war in Ukraine. Thank you all once again, and I'll see you all then.